Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1627 of the War News stream. And tonight we have very big news out of Russia, Ukraine, and also a little bit out of Iran too. But right now we're hearing that Putin's preparing to close the Russian borders and also declare a full-on mobilization very soon, according to the Ukrainian intelligence. We've also seen that Belgorod, Russia is under a massive assault with explosions happening all across the city this evening. And also Iran has issued a final ultimatum to U.S. officials, which is absolutely horrendous. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, remember covering the past 24 hours of the news from around the world, as we have been able to hear of significant developments within the war in Ukraine, the Eastern European situation, and also the Middle East as well over the course of the past 24 hours. News has emerged from Ukrainian intelligence that the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin is most likely preparing to shut down the Russian Federation's borders come this fall and begin full mobilizations of the Russian Federation due to the ongoing stagnation in the war in Ukraine and the major material losses being seen behind the lines by major Ukrainian drone attacks on wildberries distribution facilities and also oil refineries nationwide. Ukrainian drone attacks have still continued to cause those tremendous amounts of damage that have become famous for the Ukrainian long-range attack forces over the course of the past day, with major strikes being seen on the Russian ships that are once again transiting around the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Video and picture evidence has emerged showing that a Russian roll-on, roll-off cargo ship has arrived somewhere near to the Kerch Strait today, heavily damaged after Ukrainian drone attacks were able to land decisive blows onto the vessel's superstructure over the past few days. We've also seen that other major explosions were seen on vessels near to Novorossiysk and the port of Galinchik, and we have also gotten information that an electronic warfare unit at Galinchik attempting to disrupt these Ukrainian attack drones was not able to disrupt the drones and in fact has become a casualty itself, being lost in a decisive strike by several Ukrainian drones over the course of last night. Additional information was also seen from the Tawaps area, also showing us that these attacks are wide-stretching and generally going everywhere from Yalta on the southern Crimea coastline and all the way down nearly to the Georgian border and the illegal territory of West Abkhazan. Outside of this, we have also been able to hear that the Sizran refinery is continuing to burn, and the Russian Federation has once again had to deal with an incredibly large and nearly overwhelming number of drones entering their airspace. Russian helicopter and rotary aviation has once again attempted to be used to try and shoot down some of these drones, given the large number. In the meantime, we've also been able to hear a couple of other statements inside of Moscow that it appears that the Russian Federation has now become wildly concerned over a record-breaking arms deal that was conducted today and announced officially between the Republic of Turkey and the state of Ukraine, where the Turks have now provided nearly 80 ATACMS long-range missiles to the state of Ukraine to use generally however they wish. The Russian Federation is now increasingly concerned that these ballistic missiles may be used against Russia in the exact same way the Russian Federation is using their ballistic missiles against Ukraine, and that Ukrainian ballistic missile strikes could start to hit the Russians pound for pound and strike for strike that the Russians are currently conducting across the whole of Ukraine. And the Russian Federation certainly is conducting major strikes over the territory of Ukraine. Significant hits have been seen within most city areas over the course of the night, once again with major strikes being reported in Kyiv, but also other major strikes being reported within Pavlograd and also Trostianets from Russian ballistic missiles and jet-powered drones, which struck civilian infrastructure and generally civilian populaces over the course of the day. We have also been able to see the Ukrainian armed forces have inflicted high levels of casualties against the Russian armed forces and have once again held the front. Today is an exceptional day because a false alarm was actually sounded in Bulgaria earlier this morning for a drone that appears to have violated Bulgarian airspace and exploded about 1,000 meters away from a vital pumping station on a pipeline that travels from Romania to Bulgaria. We now understand that the Bulgarian Ministry of Defense has explained that this was a Ukrainian decoy drone, which appears to have somehow veered off course from an attack on the Crimean Peninsula or within the Black Sea and flown errant towards this area and crash landed onto Bulgarian soil, incredibly close near to the coastline, meaning that this major situation that looked to be transpiring this morning was really nothing more than a large false alarm. Additionally, we've also been able to hear that outside the European situation and inside the Middle East, it appears that at this moment the United States and Iran are once again at a deadlock, much like we expected. While U.S. officials are claiming that the Strait of Hormuz will be opened without any tolls or fees being implemented onto it, the Islamic Republic of Iran is stating that they are issuing a final ultimatum to the United States of America, where they will either agree to every single term and more that they had under the Memorandum of Understanding, which equaled about $660 billion in concessions to the Islamic Republic, but they will also have to agree to further terms to see that the Strait of Hormuz may possibly be reopened at some point in the future. A UK MTO report also came out from the Strait of Hormuz today, suggesting further Iranian hostile activities against merchant ships that were within the area. And we've also been able to hear that just minutes before we went on air, there appears to have been an explosion within the industrial quarter of Jubail, and we've also heard of U.S. Air Force jet aircraft active over the Baghdad area and western Iraq. We've also gotten indications that the Israeli government may be preparing to conduct strikes against Iran entirely on their own, and the Yemeni Houthis have continued their offensive actions against the official Yemeni government over the course of this day. But before we move on into all of this news that we have tonight, starting with our largest stories first, and then moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night, we actually have breaking news that's coming out on air right now. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so right now, this very minute, we're seeing a security situation developing in Saudi Arabia. Right now, this very minute, apparently, it looks like, according to the firm's satellite data from the NASA firm's Fire satellite, there's apparently a gas facility that's been targeted in Saudi Arabia's Jubail industrial city. And it looks like, according to the satellite data, if we can go ahead and get that pulled up real quick, it looks like there's a massive fire on that location. And it appears to be a very extensive possible attack that we're looking at right now. So that just happened less than about 50 minutes ago. And also we're hearing that sources on the ground are claiming there was a loud explosion in the area. And also, once again, they're seeing flames and fires coming out of the region. So what area of Saudi Arabia is this gas facility actually in? Because, I mean, that's a pretty big deal if they just got attacked.
So this is within the Al Jubail area of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and from what we can tell, at least over the fire signature and also the profile of the structure that we can see, it appears that it may be a fire that's currently affecting this specific area of the refining facilities that Saudi Aramco operates within Al Jubail, which make up the larger part of the industrial areas of the city, with Saudi Aramco operating major ports out of Al Jubail and also Dammam port further to the south.
Interesting. And also, we are hearing those reports of the intense U.S. Air Force jet activity over the area of Maysan in Baghdad, Iraq. It's not clear whose aircraft is currently making that high activity, but there's clearly some fighter jets in the area. And also, we are getting confirmation from the company that apparently runs that facility that there is a security response underway following some sort of incident that they're really not disclosing. So definitely something has happened here. We're not sure who is behind this attack or who's done it, but we do have a video apparently showing the U.S. jet activity apparently inside of Iraq in some areas of the country, and it might be quite heavy from the looks of the video.
And let's take a look really quickly at that clip and see what we have here. And so here's the brief clip. That sounds like a truck on the ground, but we can also see what appears to be some sort of navigational lights or possibly the afterburners of U.S. fighter jet aircraft that are currently airborne and operational over central Iraq. To give you all a little bit of a look, as a matter of fact, and also to cover the eyewitness report that we're able to get as well, that there was U.S. jet activity over Maysan and Baghdad within central Iraq, we are understanding that at this moment, Flight Radar 24 is showing quite a low number of aircraft that are currently in the air, although we did check this just minutes before going live, and it appeared that there was another refueling tanker rotation being conducted out of the Tel Aviv-Yafo International Airport, with 2 KC-135s landing and another 3 taking off and transiting via Jordan into the area of central Iraq. But you can actually see that one of these KC-135s is still showing up, at least with its transponder off and its predictive flight path, showing that it's most likely still flying into Iraq, and we would assume that it most likely was, considering the heavy U.S. air activity that was seen within that area. Additionally, we can also see that only one E-3 Sentry has its transponder on, currently within Saudi Arabia, when right before we went on stream, there was also an additional number of KC-135s and KC-46s, mostly operating along the eastern coastline of Saudi Arabia, and interestingly enough, almost directly over the Jubail area. We've also noted, by the way, folks, a interesting incident at least on Flight Radar 24, that's showing a T-38C Talon of the United States Air Force, usually used in aggressor squadrons to train U.S. pilots on how to fight aggressor aircraft, currently flying in orbit inside of the eastern area of the Persian Gulf. We believe that may be a spoof because we don't know why in the world that would be here and why in the world it would have taken off from Tel Aviv. Nothing of that is really making any sense, and considering the T-38 Talons generally do not carry any sort of ordnance, and if they do, it's incredibly limited, usually for training of new pilots, it's a little bit interesting to see one of these currently within the Persian Gulf. But that is largely the situation as we are seeing it right now in the air, while we've also been able to see some intermittent updates and a major development that's now happening at Jubail. Just to make sure that we cover everything that's happening in Jubail really quickly outside of the firm's satellite confirming the fire. Sources reported to Anadolu agency there was a loud explosion and a fire in Saudi Arabia's Jubail industrial city amid reports that gas facilities in the region may have been targeted. We did not hear of any ballistic missile threats prior to this incident, and at the moment, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Defense has not put out any statements stating that there was some form of a drone or missile attack on the area, which may lead us to possibly believe for now that it may have been sabotage or some sort of another additional cause that has led to the explosion. Saudi Aramco, which does run all of the old petroleum facilities within Saudi Arabia, as it is the state-run oil company, has stated that their security is continuing to respond or continued response efforts following the incident that has occurred within Jubail, giving us an understanding that whatever the incident is, it must be quite large, and unfortunately, we do not have video or picture evidence on the ground yet of how large the fire is, the scale of the fire, and also giving us the exact location of where the base of those fires are, which may give us an indication for a damage assessment. But moving us on out of the Middle East and this breaking news that we just got while we were on air, it's now time for us to move on into all of the breaking news for the night, starting with our largest stories first and then moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night. And moving us on into our first and largest stories of this night, we are going to be moving on and into the Russian Federation. The war in Ukraine has continued on, as many people have known for years at this point, largely in Ukraine in the West's favor, and the Russian Federation has continued to find itself in a stagnated position as a result of the Ukrainian armed forces' actions, and especially recently due to critical logistics and infrastructure being hit in the rear line areas by long-range Ukrainian drone attacks. The Russian Federation, as many intelligence agencies have reported over this last week and several weeks leading up to today, have continued to state that the Russian Federation finds itself in a desperate spot between a rock and a hard place, and they're attempting to find a way to escalate the conflict to either get a significant amount of concessions, or they're attempting to create a full mobilization mobilization and brute force the conflict in Ukraine, keeping the scope limited to Ukraine only, but also levying all of their abilities or fighting abilities to be able to see they might be able to turn the situation around in Ukraine and finally eke out some sort of a modest victory, which is generally all they could expect at this point. Inside of Moscow, we were able to hear that President Zelensky's intelligence has started to inform him that the Russian Federation is preparing to close the borders of their country and declare a full mobilization. There's been a lot of talk of the full mobilization that is coming around, and there have been a decent amount of public misunderstandings pertaining to the Russians' mobilization regimens and also what a full mobilization really does look like. The Russian Federation historically in the modern day conducts a biannual mobilization or conscription of the public, which is in the spring and fall. Usually the spring mobilization occurs in April, and the fall mobilization usually occurs sometime around October. Both of these mobilizations usually are conscripting about 500,000 troops each as what is called conscriptniki, which are Russian soldiers that serve a 1-year contract inside the Russian armed forces as required by law, and most of that period of time, at least in theory, is spent training those troops to hold the position that they will hold for the next 6 months until the next mobilization wave of conscriptniki take their place. That's generally how it's supposed to operate in normal historic forms, and there have been some rumors and reports that Russia is going to declare a quote-unquote full mobilization by mobilizing 500,000 people in the fall, which would be the standard number that we see most every single year on the biannual conscription regimen. However, from what we're understanding from the statements from President Zelensky today and the information the Ukrainian intelligence has been able to ascertain, this mobilization is most likely going to be quite different. And we will most likely see that when this mobilization comes around in the fall, the Russian Federation will order its border guards to shut down all of its border crossings into other countries. Most of what the West have largely already been shut down, but some border crossings to Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and the People's Republic of China still remain open at this point, and they may make sure that those remain closed so that way when a full mobilization is called, in theory, a large amount of Russian able-bodied men would not be able to leave the country. In reality, we have seen that even in prior times when the border has been closed, in mass exoduses of Russian able-bodied men, generally the border guards can be persuaded through the ruble or the dollar, depending on which one's available, and some of those men can actually cross the border and escape. But this mobilization is going to be affecting most likely a number far larger than 500,000 conscriptniki, which are usually recruited in the fall. This will most likely be affecting a larger number, possibly close to 1 million, if not more, as the Russian Federation is going to be trying to find a way to replace the manpower and also grow their armed force, at least in some extent, to be able to prepare for future combat operations, of which there could be 2. Option 1, which is a somewhat likely option, is that the Russian Federation may declare a full mobilization of their country to be able to brute force the war in Ukraine and try and bring it about to a conclusion. As many people know, the Russian Federation has operated through the entirety of the war and still does, all with the concept of the Ukrainians will eventually run out of bullets before we run out of men. And so they may be attempting to try and get a large amount of conscripts to be able to grow a large amount of motorized or largely foot infantry forces to start massive offensives against the Ukrainians and hope that the overwhelming numbers alone may be able to make up for the deficiencies that they have in armor, indirect fire support, and drone warfare capabilities, and may be able to see that they can have significant breakthroughs and offensive advantages inside of Ukraine as a result or an effect of that mobilization. The second option, which is one that we believe is fairly likely due to the intelligence reports that have been coming out recently, is that this mass mobilization of men may be attempting to improve the situation on the front lines in Ukraine and also allow commanders a larger amount of fighting reserves so that way they can absorb more losses and continue to put fresh troops onto the front lines, and they may also be hoping to divert some of those numbers towards NATO borders to be able to prepare for the provocation which we've heard heavily of from European and US intelligence, which is expected to be coming sometime around the fall. We're not entirely sure what the scale or scope of the escalation with NATO would look like during the fall season, and if these conscriptniki are provided with minimal training, these troops could be ready within several weeks, meaning that they would be ready for some sort of a fall escalation mobilization, which may occur only weeks after or months after the fall mobilization is conducted sometime in October. If that is the case, we could see the Russian Federation conduct some sort of a indirect drone attack against the Baltic states, a missile attack against the eastern flank of NATO, or may conduct a limited ground incursions with a large amount of foot infantry to support the advance of border guards into NATO territory to create a significant situation that would start to test the integrity of the NATO alliance and the NATO charter. At the moment, it is quite concerning, and we do generally understand that this report coming out today from the Ukrainian government seems to be lining up with a lot of the understandings and intelligence reports that we have already been getting from other nations' intelligence apparati is the best way to put it, from Eastern Europe, Poland, Britain, the European Union, and the United States of America. And it seems that a decent amount of people are actually talking about this right now in the chat and are wondering whether or not Putin is actually planning on conducting some sort of a larger escalation, either with the state of Ukraine or with NATO. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so we've been hearing for quite some time that in the fall of this year in 2026, Putin is planning to fully mobilize inside of Russia. We've been seeing him prepare stuff like, for example, firewalls and all kinds of different cyber techniques to try to prevent people from speaking out against it. But generally, those have failed for the most part. So now Zelensky is confirming that Putin right now is actively preparing to close the Russian borders to keep the Russians inside of the country. So that way, when he declares mobilization, they can't run off and go hide from the recruiters and also the press gangs are going to force him into the military and therefore onto the front line into the meat grinder. So what is going to happen then? Because this will be a very unpopular thing for him to do, but he's going to go for it anyway. And the intelligence at this point is very clear about this. So what is going to be the result and the consequence of Putin calling that full mobilization? It looks like 39% said maybe just protests and crackdowns. That'll probably be the extent of it, while 28% said Putin will mobilize without any major issues, and 27% said Russian citizens will revolt strongly against it, and they'll be facing maybe a government collapse because of something this extreme. And I would say I'm actually with the 39%. I believe there will be protests and most likely very, very strong government crackdowns by the Putin regime. That'll probably be a certainty at this point. Now, whether or not there's going to be a full revolt, I would say that's a 50-50 because you have to keep in mind, the Russian civilians are beat down like hell. For the past several years, they've been beat down by the FSB and all the Russian agencies out there, and they're scared to death to speak out. And also, any of the people that have power, like the oligarchs, they've been knocked off by the Putin regime. Whenever they speak out against the war, all of a sudden they trip and fall out of a window. So I think that's going to prevent people from really revolting strongly over the situation, but this is not going to be popular, and Putin's taking a huge risk by doing this, and this shows how desperate he truly is to try to turn this thing around. It's going so badly. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would be with the 39% as well. I think the protests and crackdowns would most likely be conducted in the aftermath of an announcement of a full mobilization, but we probably wouldn't see the glorious revolution that a lot of people have been imagining and hoping that we want to see come around for some time against the Putin regime, as we've seen that the Russian Federation's willpower, or the people's willpower, to stand up against the Putin regime and a large amount of the actions and injustices that they've conducted on the Russian people throughout the war has been quite low, if not non-existent in some key moments when we thought that the Russian public would actually join in some sort of unified or concerted effort against the government. And so I would not expect that they would be conducting some form of a mass revolution or a revolt against the government and storming the Kremlin and dragging Putin out into the streets anytime soon, because they haven't conducted that yet. And the fact that they haven't conducted that yet makes me think that they might not ever conduct that at all. Maybe if the economic situation gets desperate and people are no longer eating and people can no longer afford to stay inside of their residences, whatever those may be, we may see that some sort of an attempted revolution or revolt happens then, when the people can quite literally not survive under the strain. But at this point, the situation has almost gotten there, but it's not quite. So if a mobilization is declared under this situation, I wouldn't be expecting any sort of a revolt. A mobilization without issue would also be somewhat unlikely as well, at least in my opinion, because we do understand that there are a lot of people in Russia that are leaning into the belief and the idea that Putin has continued to espouse and preach largely from the Kremlin for years, that the Russian Federation will never declare a full-blown mobilization of the country, and they will also never use conscripts directly on the front lines. While we know here in the West that conscripts are used on the front lines, that is something more of a murmured rumor inside of Russia that is not known publicly, that they are using a decent number of conscripts on the front lines against Ukraine. In Russia, it's said that most of these people are volunteers. So generally, I would say if they are told that there's a mobilization, there's definitely going to be protests to some extent, but they're probably not going to be that large. They're probably not going to be that violent or that convicted. And once the Russian Oman and the FSB start to crack down on them, it'll probably start to dissipate and disappear and return back to the norms we've seen so far, even with the major economic strain that most Russians find themselves under at this moment. While we are talking about that, one other thing that I do have to point out, folks, that's a little bit interesting, because I see many people saying, well, if the Russians do conscript this humongous number of people, it's not really like they're going to be able to equip them all too well, and they really wouldn't be able to. The Russians have largely run out of armor and armored personnel carriers, and generally artillery for the most part as well, meaning that most of these units that would be raised would be of the most inferior quality that we could imagine in the modern day. Most of them would hardly even be able to be described as a motorized infantry regiment or a motorized rifle infantry regiment, as they're generally called in Russia, and will probably be equipped with personal automobiles, most likely from a used car market, and some AKs and maybe some shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons to be able to try and make up the bulk of the fighting power that would be raised in this full mobilization. We don't really have a lot of positive hopes outside of that, for the Russians at least, in being able to produce anything better than that, because we know that they hardly have any tanks and any APCs, and if they have them, most of them are already dedicated to the front lines in Ukraine, and while some of them could be diverted, it wouldn't be enough to be able to provide these brand new raised infantry regiments and the battalion tactical groups with the kind of equipment and firepower that they would truly need to even be a proper motorized rifle regiment, much less a mechanized one. But moving us on out of that bit of news, we've also been able to hear that the Russian Federation is still dealing with those difficult calamities that we've been telling you all about for a while. The Russian Federation is now suffering a higher amount of breakdowns amongst personal automobiles, and apparently Russians' Chinese cars have started to break down en masse due to refueling with low-quality gasoline. Modern engines are designed for the Euro 5 standard of gasoline that has been highly used in the Russian Federation up until the present day. Several months ago, a presidential decree was made by the office of Vladimir Putin to now introduce Euro 2 and Euro 3 gasoline grades into the Russian Federation market to be able to try and alleviate the strain that was being seen because of the oil refineries getting knocked out tremendously throughout the country. And now, due to the fuel crisis, Russian authorities are starting to issue this Euro 2 fuel to most gas stations that are able to even run their pumps. From what we understand, the sulfur content in this gasoline is 50 times the norm seen in Euro 5 grade gasoline, and injectors, fuel pumps, and spark plugs are beginning to give out in cars due to the high sulfur content and the fact that their mechanical tolerances were not designed for this kind of abuse that Euro 2 gasoline is giving them. So it is not looking all too well for Russia, even if they were able to try and get these motorized infantry regiments off the ground and equip them with used automobiles. Most of them probably wouldn't last too long because of the abuse being put on their engines, because they're being given Euro 2 gasoline instead of Euro 5 grade, which is what most cars in Russia and most modern cars that are produced these days run on in most of Eurasia. We've also been able to hear in some other words that the Russian Federation has also become increasingly concerned in Moscow about another development that happened today, which kind of brings us on over to Ukraine really quickly. In a record-breaking arms contract, the Ukrainians have bought 70 ATACMS missiles from Turkey, plus 12 M270 rocket systems, which is the MLRS system that you can see in this picture right here, from the Republic of Turkey's armed forces, with thousands of cluster munitions on board these additional ATACMS missiles. This information is quite concerning for the Russians, as ATACMS missiles have a significant range of around 300 miles, meaning that most of them would be able to strike as far in as Moscow from the border, and with the cluster round munitions that they have, these could cause significant damage to a wide variety of softer targets and even armored targets within the Russian Federation. More so importantly, the strategic impact of these sorts of missile launchers could be quite prolific, with the Ukrainians being able to strike and destroy major Russian groupings, railroads, and other vital logistical infrastructures in between Moscow and the front lines in the border regions of the state of Ukraine. Some Russian military bloggers have already started to make it incredibly clear that they are wildly concerned about this development, as Yulia Vitsevis said Ukraine purchased from Turkey 70 M39 ATACMS ballistic missiles, 12 M270s, as well as tens of thousands of cluster munitions. Actually, this is the true peace plan. Zelensky and he will not have others. Man, it sounds like they're getting a little bit worried up in there. Oh, we also were able to hear from Romanov Light as opposed to Romanov Heavy. Romanov Heavy eats a lot. Romanov Light, he generally diets greatly. But beyond that, the Romanov Light added that Ukraine bought this amount of munitions, and the purchase package included in total PC-30 M270s and the number of 12. Those are the MLRS launchers, 70 units of the ATACMS missile, 2,524 units of the M26 GMLRS missiles with the cluster munitions, and 47,000 units of 203mm shells for the M509A1. These are used in an unknown artillery piece, to be entirely honest with y'all, because I would have to go and look at it, because I do know that in the day, way back in the day, we did have 203mm artillery pieces in the U.S. Army, but I think the last of those were used in the Gulf War of 1991. I think the Republic of Turkey still has some of these systems, and so they may be using, if I pull it up really quickly, I can probably find it, but they're probably using one of the higher caliber, older artillery systems that we used to have that were generally slower to load. I think it's like an L-110, I believe, is what the actual designation of the artillery system is, but I have to check. But still, the Russians also added, well, this Russian did, immediately remember the pension fans of the Istanbul negotiations. So it looks like the Russians are saying, man, we gotta possibly try and peace out at this point. At least this guy is saying that, because he's saying, man, maybe we gotta just agree to whatever was in the Istanbul agreement and round this whole thing out. So a little bit interesting to see. The Russians are beginning to shiver in their boots, and the reason why is because while the Ukrainian long-range drone attack forces have been able to cause some damage, these ATACMS ballistic missiles, especially fire from M270s, which can carry 2 of them at a time, are very concerning for the Russian Federation, because this would allow Ukraine to generally fire pound for pound the ballistic missiles that Russia has been firing into Ukraine for some time. The Russian Federation is firing on average about 20 ballistic missiles per night into the state of Ukraine from the recent count that we've been able to get, and with those 70 ATACMS, the Ukrainians would be able to exchange fire to that degree, pound for pound, at least on this arms package, for about 3 nights straight on whatever Russian key strategic targets they would want to hit anywhere in between the Ukrainian border and 300 miles in. So I think that's the reason why the Russians might be getting a little bit concerned. 3 days isn't a great deal, but considering that the Ukrainian long-range attack drones are already doing a lion's share of the damage, these ATACMS can only add to the tremendous effects that are being seen in rear-line areas right now. And moving us on out of Moscow entirely and further on down and into the area of the Middle East, we actually have been able to get some interesting developments down here as of late. I'm making sure, folks, to knock this one out pretty quickly tonight, at least earlier on air, because it seems like with the situation that we're seeing in the air over Iraq and also in Jubail, which we just covered as breaking news at the very beginning of going on air, I want to make sure that we cover this just in case if something is about to be happening. With the heavy amount of U.S. aircraft over central Iraq, which is somewhat abnormal, and also the large amount of tankers that are airborne along with E-3 Sentry AWACS aircraft, it may be possible that some sort of an action is coming around the corner, or that Iran may be attempting to attack Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states in the moment, and we're just not really hearing a lot of information about it, or this may be the groundwork for a major Iranian attack that could be coming around the corner soon. So moving us on immediately and into the diplomatic developments that we've seen today to lay the scene for y'all inside the Middle East, we have been able to hear that the United States officials today, particularly the Vice President, has stated the following. Iran has told the United States it has no plans to impose tolls on the Strait of Hormuz.
That sounds totally believable.
That sounds absolutely believable. I think, folks, the Vice President must be entirely honest with us. I have not heard once the U.S. administration yet say that a peace deal is right around the corner, and it truly wasn't. So let's go check on the Iranians, and let's go see if a peace deal is right around the corner. According to an IRGC spokesperson who spoke in this clip, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz hinges on the U.S. accepting Iran's terms and halting interference in talks. The Strait of Hormuz is no longer merely an economic waterway for us, it's a source of power. Sounds to me like that isn't reopening the Strait anytime soon. If y'all didn't believe that one, we can also get another statement from the Iran's Supreme National Security Council Secretary, Mohammad Bagher Zolkadir, over the course of the day, where he added that the Strait of Hormuz will stay closed until the United States ends threats and attacks, withdraws forces from near Iran, lifts sanctions, unfreezes assets, and compensates for war damage. That doesn't really seem like they're reopening the Strait anytime soon, I would have to add there as well. We also were able to hear that the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also added comment. So we've got 3 different Iranian officials today that have added comment on this one, and this one was reported directly from Reuters. The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi added that Iran and Oman were very close to an agreement on a new shipping route through the Strait, but that reopening it depended on other conditions, including U.S. compensation to Iran. The Secretary of Iran's national security body, Mohammad Bagher Zolkadir, listed other demands, including ending U.S. threats against Iran, stopping aggression against Iran and its Lebanese, Palestinian, and Yemeni and Iraqi allies, so saying that we cannot bomb a single terrorist group they fund in the region, lifting a blockade and sanctions on Iran, and freeing Iranian assets. So all 3 of these officials have come out today, folks, and said very clearly that to have the Strait of Hormuz reopened, we basically have to give them every single thing that we were going to give them in the Memorandum of Understanding, which was roughly about $660 billion in concessions. And we're also going to have to give them a great deal more, not only in monetary provisions like reparations, but we would also have to completely pledge and promise that we do not conduct an attack against them or any of their proxy forces in the future, basically allowing the Iranians free reign to do whatever they would want themselves and with their proxy forces, with the U.S.'s hands completely bound by treaty to do absolutely nothing regardless of what the Iranians were doing inside the Middle East. And lastly, just in case y'all didn't believe it, we have this official published statement right here. Sadly, folks, I cannot read Arabic or Farsi, but this is the official statement by the Islamic Republic of Iran, where the Iranian Supreme National Security Council Secretary Zolkadir said the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed until the U.S. changes course, demanding an end to threats and attacks, withdrawal of U.S. forces near Iran, sanctions relief, release of frozen assets, and compensation for war damage. So it's quite clear that the Islamic Republic of Iran is not opening the Strait anytime soon by their written statements. We've also seen that a UKMTO incident was reported in the Strait of Hormuz, where a verified source has reported that a vessel was struck by an unknown projectile which caused the fire that had been extinguished. There was no environmental impact, and the crew and the vessel are reported as safe. So quite clearly, in the midst of everything that Iran said today, while the U.S. is still saying, once again, right before the markets open, that there is definitely a deal on the horizon and everything's about to be fine and everything's going to be reopened and it's going to be like nothing ever happened, the Iranians just conducted another attack on a ship, and all of their statements throughout the day from 3 different top government officials within the Islamic Republic of Iran are making it clear that they are demanding major concessions, those of a sum even larger than the Memorandum of Understanding, or they will not open the Strait of Hormuz, leaving the United States with 2 options. Either we can accept the Iranian terms of surrender and give them probably up to about $1 trillion in concessions in hard cash for the large part to try and get the Strait reopened, and there's no guarantee it would reopen even after we give them that money, because they make that incredibly clear in all their statements. Or we can go back to war with Iran and we can forcibly try and break the blockade and see that the oil starts flowing freely through the vital Strait of the Hormuz. Those are the only 2 options, once again, that the United States has. It's really funny to me, folks, that the president has said about 3 or 4 times at this point in this conflict that the pen is mightier than the sword and that the Iranians are begging him and dying for a deal, when in reality, every single time we come around to it, the Iranians are not dying for a deal, they're dying to screw us over. And if that's what a deal looks like, then that's not a deal, that's called getting fleeced. So a lot of people are talking about the situation as it stands right now, and what might be happening as a result of the Iranian hardline position and the final ultimatum that they've once again given to us today, that we either accept their demands and it's their way or the highway. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so the question is, will the U.S. accept Iran's terms to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or will the war restart soon? Because obviously this laundry list of horrible terms that Iran's put out today is absolutely absurd. They want the U.S. to lift Iranian sanctions, unfreeze their assets, give them reparations, lift a naval blockade, end the regional war, and also end any future threats against Iran over anything, including nuclear weapons. So essentially what they're saying is the U.S. can fully, unconditionally surrender, essentially, or else. That's what the Iranians are saying. So they're position has not changed basically whatsoever throughout all these new developments in the Middle East, which is really not shocking whatsoever, to say the least. But what do you think about the situation? 76% said the war will restart soon, while 10% said a deal will be reached, and 9% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I would have to say, you don't have to be an expert analyst or anybody in the know to really know where this is about to go. This deal is not going to work. If the U.S. accepts a deal like that, they'll basically be surrendering to Iran, which, they kind of did that before with the MOU to a certain degree, but this would be even worse, in my personal opinion, because there's literally no terms in this that's favorable to the United States. It's even worse than the MOU. So the U.S. probably won't agree to it, and even if they did agree to it, Iran would still find a way to mess it up and violate it. That's how stupid Iran is. So I'm a big believer in the war will restart soon. I know the midterm elections are coming around. Those will be here around the beginning of November of this year, but I don't think they can stave off this conflict restarting before November. I think it's definitely going to restart before then, is my guess. So I'm with the 76%. We'll probably see more attacks very soon. And also, I mean, Iran's sending out their proxy forces quite heavily. Like, for example, to attack Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. They're still doing that even right now, even though the IRGC is not directly behind it. So I'm with the majority. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would be with a large majority as well. The overwhelming majority, 76%. Matthew, we don't really see a lot of polls like that, unless if it's questions like, is Russia screwed? We don't really see unanimous results like that these days. So I'll be with the 76%. I would say that the war is going to be restarting soon. Again, but the problem is, folks, is that I don't really have a lot of faith that the war is going to restart and we're finally going to get this thing done. Unfortunately, because of the current administration and particularly the president's course of action when it comes to the war, we have seen that it's performed quite poorly on the strategic outset of actually fighting the war. And we've also seen on the diplomatic side of things, the diplomatic side has become, if anything, a hindrance more so than a benefit to the U.S. position in the conflict. Multiple times at this point, we have stopped the conflict to engage in negotiations with Iran under the claim that they're dying to make a deal, and we may be able to finally resolve this thing and bring it to a quick conclusion. And then we realize, like we have again here, that the Iranians are not wanting to bring it to a quick conclusion. They're only using the negotiation period to buy themselves time, regroup forces to continue their blockade of the Hormuz, and are simply entrenching their position even further while demanding major concessions to the tune of $1 trillion probably at this point to be able to see that the Strait might get reopened if it's left up to them after they get the money.
Yeah, I think right now what the crux of the issue is, the reason why the U.S. is stalling again, I think the proof is in the recent information that came out about the missile interceptors being sold to the Middle Eastern countries. We did hear that about 5,200 Patriot interceptors have been sold and also are apparently in transit to the Middle East at some point here in the near future. I think that's what they're waiting for. It seems like every time the war stops, the reason why it's actually stopping, outside of all the rhetoric that goes around between Iran and the United States, is because Iran wears out the interceptor stocks of the Gulf states so fast, the U.S. has to put a timeout on it so that way they can bring in more missile interceptors. That's my guess. That was my guess the last time, and generally it kind of followed that same timeline a little bit. They got the restock, then the war restarted, they ran out, and then the war stopped again. So I think that's the real material reason that it keeps happening like this, and once they get those interceptors delivered, we'll probably see, once again, the U.S. says, okay, a deal's not going to happen, we're going to start attacking again, and then we go through Groundhog Day again until the same thing happens over once more.
But the thing that's a little bit peculiar about that, I'm not saying that that's not the case, but the thing that is odd about that, though, is that the United States strategic airlift capabilities in the Air Force are designed to be able to conduct sustainment operations for overseas campaigns in East Asia, Europe, or the Middle East quite effectively, and to be able to sustain the rate of depletion of munitions. So as long as there's anything available to load into an aircraft like Patriots here in the United States, and they can fly those to the Middle East, the Air Force's strategic capabilities are designed to be able to keep that fight going on a continuous basis. And so, or at least in theory, it's designed to be that way, and that's generally what the Air Force claims as a supply doctrine and what they're capable of doing. So if it's the case that somehow they're running out of munitions to the point that they have to try and stop the war and rearm, where is the filling in the U.S. Air Force to where they cannot supply or maintain the rate of supply to sustain fire in the Middle East to where we run out of munitions and have to basically call a timeout to try and rearm and keep going at it?
It could be just simply a logistics constraint. Like, for example, the aircraft they're flying these interceptors in might be able to only carry so many of them, so they have a very small window to deliver the missiles, the interceptors, and maybe that's a limitation. That's why they can only deliver so many at a time. It's simply because of storage limitations. That could be as simple as it is.
It might be. I would have to say though, like if that's the answer, then that's once again, like we've been saying for a while, sheer incompetence on the end of the military planners to not have enough munitions in theater to sustain fighting over a long period of time, and that we're having to basically call timeouts to try and rearm, or the fact that it wasn't factored into war planning in advance that the aircraft couldn't carry the number of missiles that would be required for the volume of fire we would see. All of that is just a lack of planning and a lack of foresight, particularly on the part of the Air Force, just to make that clear for everyone, because the Air Force is the one that is responsible for sustainment of our fire capabilities within the Middle East. Every single ATACMS that you'll see, every single Patriot that's fired, every single round that's fired, generally from a U.S. warship even within the area, most of those munitions are brought into the area along with all the other supplies by the U.S. Air Force from the C-17s and the C-5 Galaxies that are flying across the Atlantic in an endless conga line from the U.S. to the Middle East and back. And the fact that if that was the answer, if that is the answer, then there is something going terribly wrong in the background as far as U.S. military planning, because why wouldn't they have seen that that is a major logistics bottleneck and factor that in beforehand and had enough airlifts to be able to build up enough munitions that would have lasted us for a significant duration of time rather than short stints?
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, it seems like a lack of planning. That seems like the common theme. So that's probably it.
Man, the common theme, folks, of this war, sadly, is too much talking and not enough planning. And once again, it looks like we're being affected by that. If that was the answer, I think that the other thing is, folks, is I would have to say. I'm not really a huge subscriber of the idea that we just don't have enough munitions in the area. I'm not really a big believer in that. Now, I would say that I'm a huge believer in that we didn't have enough Patriots to be able to carry on this war, and we also don't have enough protection to sustain the consumption rate. But the one thing that I would say that's generally screwed the war over is a lack of a breaking of the blockade on the Hormuz during the first phase of the war, which brought the first phase to an end. And then on the second phase of the war, it was a complete lack of a plan. Because generally here on the channel, we were saying that the second phase of the war was conducting an anti-coastal campaign to break the blockade of the Hormuz. In reality, from what we've now found out, it looks like the U.S. was just bombing the coastal forces, not to break the blockade on the Hormuz, but just to bomb them. And they expected that would put pressure on the government in Iran, at Tehran, several hundred miles away, that would make them want to end the war. Although they had already gone through a month and a half of fighting beforehand and they hadn't given up, for some reason, 13 days of strikes on coastal forces would make them give up instead, which absolutely makes no sense. And then they went into another round of negotiations afterwards. So in my honest opinion, folks, I don't really think it's a lack of the Air Force's capability to supply the forces like we were just talking about a second ago, which might be a possibility. I'm actually more in the idea, I'm more in the camp of it's really more so the civil administration that's been screwing over the war on every front, whether it be diplomatic or strategic, that's led us into the situation that we're in right now. Because I would find it very odd, folks, that the U.S. Air Force, which is designed, this is why we have so many airlift aircraft, it's designed to be able to sustain U.S. forces at war in Europe. So it's quite odd to say that they wouldn't be able to sustain generally just an air defense campaign or an air campaign in the Middle East, considering that we easily did that in 1991 with almost the same amount of supply aircraft. So I find the whole situation quite odd. You could really go with any answer you wanted. The Air Force can't do it. The civil administration screwing everything up. But there is a lack of planning on some end here that is absolutely dire. But outside of that, we also have some other news that we've gotten from the region. The Israelis seem to be getting ready, possibly, for their own military actions against the Islamic Republic of Iran. And according to or Israel Channel 13, so take this for what you will, it's an Israeli news source, Israel's preparing to strike Iran on its own if the U.S. pulls back from further military escalation. The IDF is maintaining plans for independent action as the United States pushes towards a diplomatic exit. That was according to Israel Channel 13. But I want to make it incredibly clear, folks, that Israeli news outlets are not the best known here on the channel anymore for credibility. They can kind of say anything and everything under the sun. So I wouldn't say that that's out of the question. They might be planning their own operations. But I would also add that it is not a guaranteed certainty that Israel is going to conduct its own operations if the U.S. just gets up and walks off. We also heard, according to Con News, that U.S. Central Commander Chief Brad Cooper traveled to Israel for situational assessments with the IDF Chief of Staff Zamir and other senior IDF officials following meetings in Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates over the past several days. The visit comes amid talks of a potential ceasefire agreement and ongoing U.S. pressure on Israel to transition to the next phase of the Gaza plan. Right now, a lot of people are generally more so talking outside of the visit of Admiral Brad Cooper to Israel, who is the CENTCOM commander of the theater. More people are talking about the fact, or more so the word on the street, that the Israelis might be preparing for their own war against the Islamic Republic of Iran, which probably would take a very similar sort of a shape up to the 12-Day War, where the Israelis conducted independent military actions against the Islamic Republic of Iran and conducted significant airstrikes against transport erector launchers and other important military pieces or units inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran's armed forces in the IRGC, and they may also attempt to hit and knock out top government officials as well, considering that the Israelis do not seem adverse to those sorts of actions. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now? What are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so the word on the street is that Israel is getting really, really antsy, which is of no surprise, by the way, because Israel's been wanting to really chomp at the bits to get back at Iran ever since the thing came to a ceasefire, which is kind of understandable in one way, but kind of also a little bit too gung-ho in another way. But we are hearing that Israel is preparing to strike Iran independently of the United States, at least according to reports, if the U.S. pulls back from the military escalation that's been recently happening. So what are your thoughts about that? 70% said they agree that Israel should strike Iran on their own accord without the United States. 14% said Israel needs to wait for the U.S. to jump back in before they start doing stuff on their own. And 9% said this probably isn't really a true report. And I think it probably is a true report. I wouldn't be surprised about this whatsoever. But the catch is this, though. I mean, what advantage would it be for Israel to preemptively attack Iran before Iran attacks Israel? Because what they're going to do is they're going to start an absolute shitstorm. That's what's going to happen the moment they start doing that. Iran's going to start attacking the Gulf state infrastructure. They're going to start attacking everything. And it's going to be a free-for-all. So at that point, I'm not really sure what the gain is at that point. Because if the U.S. is not truly behind what Israel's doing and Israel's on their own, they risk messing up the relationship for defense with the United States military, which could be a problem. And also they create a huge disaster infrastructure-wise in the Gulf states. So I could totally understand why Israel would defend themselves. If they get attacked, they clearly have to counterattack. That's just pure self-defense. If the U.S. said anything other than that, that would be silly. But I would say that Israel really probably should wait for the United States first, because without that, they're starting something that could get quickly out of hand, I would say. So I'm actually with the 14%, believe it or not. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I probably would be with the 14% as well, because I have to remind y'all something here that's a little bit interesting and is largely a fact of the wars that have been going on in this region. During the 12-Day War, at the end of the 12-Day War, Israeli interception rates on Iranian incoming ballistics and drones had dropped to a total of around 40%, meaning that every 6 missiles and drones out of every 10 were making it through Israeli air defenses. We then saw that in the first phase of the war with Iran in this year, generally, Israeli air defenses almost fell silent towards the end of the month and a half of fighting that we had seen, and most Iranian ballistic missiles were making it quite easily on into their targets inside of Israel, showing that Israel does not have the defensive munitions, much like most other countries in the region do, to be able to defend against sustained hybrid drone and missile attacks, which are extremely exhaustive for the expensive and low-numbered missile interceptors that they have in most of these countries. So I would have to say that, in my general opinion, I think they probably should wait for the United States, because if the Israelis go and conduct an action entirely on their own, which they might end up doing, the Iranians could counterattack, and the Iranian counterattack will most likely make it through the very limited air defenses that they have, or they would only be able to sustain a certain amount of air defense fire for a couple of days before it started to fall silent, and most Iranian drones and missiles started to make it through to their targets. If that is the case, considering the small size of Israel and the limited number of bases and material facilities that they have, most of those could suffer pretty significant damage, if not get knocked out, and that could leave Israel in a strategically horrific spot not, because they wouldn't really be able to defend against anything that's coming their way at some point in the future. And we could also see that significant elements of the Israeli Air Force, probably one of the more important parts of the Israeli Defense Forces at this moment, might be completely knocked out of the fight for a good while, maybe even months, if not years, depending on the damage that might be caused. Also, another thing that I have to add in, folks, is some people say, well, that wouldn't happen. And if you're saying that, you haven't been watching the war, because the Iranians have been landing major hits on U.S. military installations, which are able to pull from a far larger material base here from the United States to defend themselves with in terms of Patriot missile interceptors, THAAD interceptors, and others. And they're still taking hits almost every single time the Iranians conduct a wave of attacks. Each base gets hit at least once or twice, showing that even the United States is running quite low on interceptors and finding it difficult to defend itself against Iranian attacks. So it wouldn't be out of the question to say that Israel could suffer a very similar fate if they go into the conflict alone. So I would actually be with a 14% as well. I think that the Israelis should probably wait for the United States of America, because it's a lot better to conduct overwhelming combined actions than it would be to conduct singular one-off actions where it might be easier for the Iranians to defend and counterattack against their adversaries. So I hope that addresses that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, it is now time for us to move on into one more brief little bit of news in the Middle East before we return right back up and into Ukraine, which is a simple update that the Houthis have continued their attacks against Yemeni government positions on the active front line in the Yemeni civil war over the day. Nothing extremely wild there. It almost sounds like we're going to build up into some giant crescendo here, but it's just basically the civil war in Yemen is continuing, and the government forces and the Houthis are apparently engaging in somewhat heavy returns of fire against each other at the moment right now, which is a little bit exceptional. We don't see that often. And over the past week, we've started to see that a good bit more, which might be suggesting that either the Houthis are planning a major offensive against the Yemeni government, or the Yemeni government might just be showing indecisiveness, and this is leading the Houthis to believe that they could get away with some major attacks at the moment without the Yemeni government making any form of response. But moving us on out of the Middle East, it's now time for us, folks, to move right back up and into Europe and cover every single other thing that we have not been able to get to yet over the course of the stream from the war in Ukraine. But before we get to it, I do have to say a humongous thanks to everybody who has been watching so far once again tonight. I gotta say that we're always honored and greatly appreciative to know that so many people are watching this channel, and once again tonight, folks, the number is being underreported by YouTube. We found out last night, just to let y'all know how far underreported it is, last night on the show, we said that we had a peak viewership of 16.3 thousand people. YouTube updated that today to show that we actually had a peak live viewership last night of 17.15 thousand people. So a lot more people than we had last night, almost by 900 live viewers. So I would assume that tonight we probably have over 17,000 people watching, but YouTube is not saying that right now. It's 16.3 or so right now at the peak. But I got to thank you all so much once again for watching so far. We still have a lot of news to go, and regardless whether YouTube is showing the number of folks who are here accurately, I do have to say that we are entirely honored and tremendously appreciative of each and every single one of y'all spending your time here on this channel, because we love to know that a lot of y'all consider us to be your primary source of news. We always try our best to make sure to cover the news as accurately and factually as possible, and to also give the most accurate and unbiased analysis that we can, whether it be the good and the bad and the ugly. Y'all can always expect to get it from us straight and true, instead of what other people do, which is beating around the bush. And so, with that in mind, we are about to be moving on to this next segment, but before we do, we're going to take a quick minute to get 3 questions from the chat, and then we'll be moving on into all of that up there in Ukraine. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first 3 super chats for the night, and then jumping right back to our big breaking news of the night, we do have a $30 support from none other than Howard Turgell, and thank you very much, Howard, for the $30 support, and we do appreciate that very, very much. It does help to keep the channel running. He said, okay, back to war, but how do we get the Strait open and out of Iran's control? And honestly, like Howard, honestly, the only way forward is to basically conduct a coastal campaign. That's about as simple of an explanation as we can get really on that. Outside of that, Iran's never going to voluntarily give it up, so diplomacy is out at this point. I think that's very clear. Like anybody that's been following this thing since the very beginning of the Middle East crisis with the Strait of Hormuz, then you know diplomacy is not a real viable avenue at this point. Iran's demanding full surrender, and also they want to put tolls in the Strait, and that's not acceptable. So a military solution is the only solution at this point, I would say. So until the U.S. gets the balls to pull that off, I would say the Strait will definitely probably not be under control. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that the only way to open up the Strait at this point, in my opinion, is to conduct a 1-month-long coastal campaign with airstrikes against the coast of the Strait of Hormuz and the near areas in the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf, and then see about sending an Arleigh close to it and seeing what kind of threat level exists, with it being provided air cover simultaneously by the U.S. Air Force and the Naval Air Arm. If it looks like there is still a significant amount of fire coming from the coast or from IRGC anti-ship batteries, then the United States should move to Plan B, which should be to conduct an overwhelming naval and airstrike bombardment to overwhelm and generally suppress IRGC forces while we conduct an amphibious landing on the islands of Hormuz, Kashim, and also Larak, to be able to hold down these major islands within the Strait and to create something akin to a wall, largely, between the Iranian fire on the coastline and the ships that would be passing through the Strait. Once we do that, and once we're able to make it certain that we're able to sustain those forces on those islands, we can then start sending Arleigh Burkes into the Strait to start gathering up ships and escorting them out of the Strait, and then send Arleigh Burkes through the Gulf of Oman into the Persian Gulf the other way, being followed or largely in a convoy of oil tankers to make sure that they're protected and that the flow of oil is able to continue. I think that that's probably what we should look at next, and then continue to escalate from there however we must. I hate to say this, folks, but unfortunately in a war, once you take on a war, you kind of take on everything that entails. And I know that I know that a lot of y'all didn't want to entail any sort of a ground invasion inside of the Strait Islands in the Hormuz, but the government did want to undertake it, and so now we're kind of stuck in this lurch where we have to fix the situation, and we kind of have to do whatever we have to at a national level to fix the problem. That might even include possibly a ground invasion of Iran proper if the situation just continued to be out of control and there wasn't really a way to fix it. And I would have to say, not to get on a soapbox here and preach, but if you don't like what I'm saying, I don't want you to feel like I'm the one advocating that we need to conduct a ground invasion in Iran. I'm just trying to come up with ways that we can fix the problem. If you think that it's a problem that we're even having to consider a ground invasion into Iran proper to end the conflict, then I would say that you need to look at the U.S. government that started the conflict with poor planning in mind and has continued on with poor planning for over 6 months at this point, and generally give them a second look. Because if you don't really like how this has turned out, which I'd say is pretty fair, it's not really on the fault of anyone who's trying to fix the problem and having to take any and all measures necessary to fix it. It's more so the problem that the U.S. government went into this half-cocked and completely unprepared, and now we're having to figure out how to dig ourselves out of a 6-foot grave after we've already gotten down there without a ladder. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, and a tremendous thanks to you so much once again, Howard Turgell. And I hope that in a short and concise way, that explains at least the master strokes of a strategy that could be involved in trying to clear out the Strait of Hormuz and return the flow of oil from the Middle East. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one goes to TRMN8R23, who put in a $20 support. And thank you very much, good sir, as well, for that generous $20 support. He said, thank you for what you do, and LSA forever.
And long live the Lee Spring Army. And I gotta thank you so much for enjoying what we do. TRMN8R23. Matthew, that sounds like a flight number. That sounds like American Airlines flight. Like, honestly, something like that. Oh, and I gotta say, a humongous thanks for enjoying what we do. We always try our best to make sure to report this as accurately as we can, and as factually as we hopefully can. And I hope that we've done somewhat well. And so, humongous thanks to you so much once again. Long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And with that, we are on into the last question of this segment. And Matthew, do we have Ella McWheel's NAFO's 40 in these spreadsheet?
40. Let's see here. It went in as a 20 for some reason, but yeah, it's here.
Oh well. With that, let's get that thing.
All right, so our last one in the segment here is going to go to none other than Ella MC Wills NAFO, who put in a $40 super chat, and my spreadsheet tried to jip Ella out of 20 of the 40 right there. So sorry about that, Ella, but thank you very much for that $40 support, and we do appreciate that because that does help keep the channel running. And Ella said, I just want to say that we heart you, enforcers, and the two of you provide the best news here on YouTube, and thank you both for everything you guys do every single day. And take one from the chat, LLTLSA and Slava Ukraine.
And a humongous thanks to you for that support and helping this channel to keep on running, Ella McWheel's NAFO. And I gotta say, we are greatly appreciative of all the folks who really put a lot of stock into the channel and think that it is just tops. It's just a cat's meow, as they used to say back in the day. And I gotta say, we always try our best. And I know that you know that, Ella McWheel's NAFO. You've been around here for years. You've been around here at least for over 3 years at this point, because I can't really remember a time where you haven't been on the channel, and we greatly appreciate you for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would not be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep this coverage running every single night. And I also got to say, folks, it's an unbelievable thing to know that for 4.5 years, exactly 1,627 days, we've been able to keep this channel running entirely off of crowdfunding. And that doesn't sound like a lot. When we say that, that just sounds like a different sort of revenue stream. But y'all do not know how much that impacts how channels are run, whether it be crowdfunded or funded by some sort of a large sponsor or group in the background. If you're sponsored or funded by a large group in the background, there are usually a lot of requirements that they have, rules more so per se, that would allow us to say certain things on air, but would also forbid us from saying certain stuff on air. If we had major backers in the background, they would tell us that we couldn't speak about certain things apolitically. We would have to take a partisan position, and we would have to either go left or right depending on what they want. We would also be told that we can't say certain things, whether it be for the strategic interests of the republic or not, on the greater situation around the world. There would be a lot of things that would change with how this channel is run. And for 1,627 days straight, we've been able to run this thing entirely off of crowdfunding and viewer support, and we've been able to keep this probably one of the most independent and factual news coverages that anyone can see on air, or at least currently here on YouTube, because we did not have to be beholden to any of those claims. Y'all are the people who not only watch this show, but y'all make it possible, and y'all make it a reality for us to be able to live in this kind of sphere that we live in, and to be able to talk about the news in this way without having any strings attached in the background where we have to report it certain ways or report it other ways. And so a humongous thanks to every single one of y'all once again for spending your time here, and those who go out of your way to support the channel to help it to make it possible and keep it running, because y'all literally make this show what it is. If it wasn't for y'all's crowdfunding, we wouldn't be able to report this news the way that we have done for years. And so a huge thanks to you once again. Hope that does address that incredibly well, Ella McWheels Nafo. And with that, folks, we will be returning back into the news and covering everything that we got from around the rest of the world. And also, don't fret, folks, if you have thrown in a super chat so far, we will be getting to it once we round out the news, and we'll be starting with the largest super chats first, and then working our way on down to the smaller ones. So moving us on into this news that we have out of Europe, we were able to see that a major false alarm happened today in Bulgaria. And I'm not going to lie, folks, when I saw this earlier today, I thought that it may have been a Russian drone, because we've seen so many Russian drone incidents and cruise missile incidents happening over the past 2 weeks. This one that happened in Bulgaria almost looked exactly like any other. And a little bit of information came out earlier this morning that an explosion had happened 1,000 meters away from a gas pipeline pumping station on the Romanian-Bulgarian border, and it had also happened near to a border checkpoint as well, all of this being in a very similar area to where this drone impacted and exploded. From what we understand, the explosion was somewhat small, but did lead many people to believe that it may have been a possible Russian drone attack on the Republic of Bulgaria. It appears that now we understand that it was not a Russian drone, it was actually a Ukrainian drone, and a false alarm that happened over the course of the day. Bulgaria's defense ministry stated that initial analysis indicates that the drone that entered from Romania and exploded earlier today was most likely a Ukrainian Maya decoy drone, which they then went on to add that they were quite familiar with this drone, and while it had never really entered Bulgarian airspace before, the Ukrainians had already apparently notified them in some sort of briefings for their Ministry of Defense what these drones were and how they operated. So once they started to look through the pieces and the debris, they issued the announcement pretty quickly, dispelling the rumors that it was a Russian drone that exploded on Bulgarian soil, and stated simply that it was a Ukrainian drone that had gone errant and accidentally exploded in Bulgaria. So to give y'all the full story in the breakdown, while y'all look at a picture here of the Bulgarian Minister of Defense, a drone entered Bulgarian airspace from the direction of Romania and exploded around 100 meters inside Bulgarian territory this morning. Bulgarian Prime Minister Rumen Radev said following a meeting of the Security Council. The incident occurred near the former Kerdem border crossing on the Bulgaria-Romania frontier and approximately 1,000 meters from a compressor station on the Trans-Balkan gas pipeline. The drone crashed in a sunflower field, and no injuries or damage to infrastructure have been reported. Radev said Romanian border police first recorded the sound of the drone, followed by a loud explosion in the area. Bulgarian border police, national police, and defense ministry units were immediately deployed while the area was secured and isolated. The drone was reportedly not detected by either Romanian or Bulgarian air defense monitoring systems, and Bulgaria also said it has received no notifications from NATO's Combined Air Operations Center in Torahan, which monitors airspace across southern Europe. Radev said the drone was larger than a recreational drone and carried a significant amount of explosives. The Bulgarian Prime Minister said the drone was difficult to detect because of its small size and low altitude flight, highlighting a continuing challenge for air defense and counter drone systems. Bulgarian authorities are now redeploying additional border forces and equipment to improve drone detection and interception capabilities along the country's border with Romania and Turkey. So that was the situation as it happened today. It appears that, at least according to the Bulgarians, they say that it was a Ukrainian decoy drone that exploded inside of Bulgaria. This isn't really unheard of, folks. There was a Ukrainian drone not too long ago. We actually covered it on air. I think it floated into... Where was that port, Matthew? I'm trying to think of where the port was. It was on the Bulgarian coast or the Romanian coast. No,
Was it the
Kastana.
port of Brunei? Okay.
Remember, it was that Ukrainian sea baby that apparently went adrift and it floated right up here onto this breakwater and it blew up at the edge of the port?
Yeah, I vaguely remember that, yeah.
Yeah, things like this do happen from time to time, folks. And while it is a little bit of a coincidental time that this is coming in the midst of major incursions and actions by Russian drone forces in Germany, Poland, and Romania, it appears that according to the Bulgarians, they immediately dispelled and said it was a Ukrainian decoy drone. And I also want to make it clear for everybody that the Bulgarians are not using this as some sort of a justification to start distancing from Ukraine. Their diplomatic position has not changed with the state of Ukraine as a result of this incident. It is just that they immediately dispelled it. One thing I will say, though, folks, do y'all notice something a little interesting here? And I want to get y'all in on a little bit of how the narrative is spun out here in the West right now on the situation with Russia. Did you notice, Matthew, that when it was a Ukrainian drone, they came out within literally like 3 hours and were like, oh, it was 100% Ukrainian. But with Russian drones, it takes them about 3 days to slow walk the news that it was a Russian drone. Have you noticed that?
It's probably because Ukraine probably tipped them off that it probably was one of their drones. That's probably why they were so quick with it. And also, they want to be extra sure that it's a Russian drone before they simply say that, because, that can have implications behind it. So they probably are real quick to blame Ukraine because it's really easy to do it.
Yeah, but I mean, also the thing is, though, is that when Ukraine has something that explodes accidentally in a country, there really isn't much of an impact because all of them just go, oh, it was just an accidental sort of a thing. It just exploded. No one was harmed. No big deal. Just wanted to dispel any public concerns. But whenever anything Russian hits a country like Romania or Poland or Germany, then they go, well, we don't really know what it was. Like, we have to conduct a full-blown investigation, and while they clearly know it within the first few hours, like, for example, when a Russian cruise missile flies across the Ukrainian border into Poland, it doesn't take them 3 days to go, oh yeah, that was definitely 100% a Russian cruise missile. It happened to be the literal model that the Russians use, the KH-101, and they're basically the only people that use it. And it's not like they have to spend 3 days like being like, okay, so it's a KH-101, but it's just really Russian, considering it's like the only country in the world that uses them. The fact of it is, folks, is that a lot of these Western countries are trying to tamp down the public demand for a response in how they release this news, and considering that the position with Ukraine is unchanging, if a Ukrainian drone or a Ukrainian munition blows up inside of NATO territory, they'll just immediately announce it within hours. They'll be like, oh, by the way, that was a Ukrainian drone, no big deal, it doesn't require any further insight or any looking into it because it is what it is. But when a Russian drone or a Russian missile blows up on NATO territory, then they have to slow walk the news. Because when the news immediately comes out, folks, the emotions in the public are usually of shock and outrage, and they want to be able to direct that shock and outrage at someone somewhere. If they say it's the Ukrainians, it just shuts it all down immediately. It's an end result. Everyone's like, oh, well, it must have been an accident. We're moving on. But if it's the Russians, though, and you say, oh, this is 100% the Russians, literally within like 3 hours of it happening, everybody in that country is probably going to be calling for blood. And so that's the reason why I think, folks, that it takes NATO states 3 days to slow walk the release that it was a Russian drone. And also notice, folks, how they do it so slowly. They'll sit there and go, oh, it kind of looks like it. It kind of was. And then by day two, we're pretty certain it was. It may have been, but we're not entirely sure. And then on the third day, they'll quietly just come out with like a one-sentence statement. By the way, it was Russian. And then they completely drop it and move on. And by then, the outrage in the public has died down to where people aren't going to be demanding blood or some sort of a major response to the Russians conducting an attack on their national soil. But outside of that, a lot of people are talking about the incident in Bulgaria. And a lot of people are wondering what happened in Bulgaria. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about what happened in Bulgaria?
Okay, so we did hear that that drone apparently entered their airspace in Bulgaria from Romania, and it's believed to be a Ukrainian drone. That's what they're currently saying, and they were very quick to say that. They were said, "Oh, it was a Ukrainian drone. It was a false alarm, no concern whatsoever." So, what do you think is going on? 41% of the audience said it sounds like a Ukrainian accident, like maybe a drone accidentally flew from Ukraine into the area of Bulgaria, and that's all it was, very innocent. While 37% said it sounds like a Russian false flag attempt, and 15% said it's simply too early to tell exactly what this could be. And I'll be honest, folks, I'm actually a little bit on the fence about this because we had gotten the intel reports not a long time ago that Russia was going to attempt false flag attacks using Ukrainian drones into the airspace of countries like, for example, Romania and other ones like that, and potentially even the Baltic states. So this just happens to take place not too long after that intel report came out. So it's very possible that maybe it is truly a Ukrainian drone like they're saying it is, or, I wouldn't say to rule out completely the idea that it could be maybe the Russians testing the idea that they could do something like that on a Baltic state next. I wouldn't rule that out completely because right now we're simply basing our entire analysis off what the Bulgarians are saying. And I don't know if we heard from the Ukrainians yet about that?
I don't think we've heard from them.
Yeah, so we're basing it completely off of what Bulgaria is saying. So, I mean, that's a big assumption right there that they're telling the entire truth and that it's also completely accurate. So, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out that Ukraine maybe had a mistake, but I mean, at the same time, though, I mean, that's a long way for it to go through Romania, then to Bulgaria. I mean, that's a pretty big mistake. But Enforcer, what say you?
But to counter that, because I'm with the 40% here, folks, I think it actually was a Ukrainian accident. We do know of an incident that happened a good while ago in May of this year where a Ukrainian Samsung drone, well, not a Samsung drone, but a Maya decoy drone, here's a piece of it right here, actually ran into the city of Samsung, and it's not named Samsung for copyright reasons, by the way. But all jokes aside, it did collide into a house inside the Samsung area, and they did show some of the debris of the tail section and also what these drones actually look like. And another example here as well to back up that this was a Maya decoy drone that hit Samsung. And from what we know with the story behind that one, which the Ukrainians did confirm a couple of months ago, this Samsung decoy, well, not Samsung, Maya decoy, was flying over Crimea and it was jammed and the operators lost control and the drone just autopiloted on a heading at a certain altitude over the Black Sea and then just ended up colliding into the hills and the houses near Samsung on the cliffs that surround the city. So I would say that it's not out of the question that this could have been a decoy drone that was operating over Crimea last night, because we do have confirmed attacks that happened in Crimea overnight. An electronic warfare jammer may have disconnected it from its operator, and the drone then autopiloted all the way towards Bulgaria, and then flew a little bit through Romania, and then on into Bulgaria. I would say that's not out of the question, and also the fact that the Bulgarians kind of just said it was just a Ukrainian decoy drone, really nothing has changed as a result of this, and it was just an incident that happened, is leading me to believe that it may have just been that, and we just haven't gotten a Ukrainian statement yet confirming it.
It could be as innocent as that, but I would hold out some idea that maybe it could be possibly a false flag attack. It's hard to tell.
Well, I wouldn't hold it out, Matthew. Your arm's going to get tired that way.
Man, it could be. I'm holding it up myself.
Man, honestly, man, like holding out ideas, man, ideas are heavy, man. Like, have you held out one of those things lately? Those things these days are like 40, 50 pounds, It's like that's not a lot when you're like talking about like picking it up real quick, but when you're trying to hold it out there, like arm outstretched and everything, man, that'd get tiring fast. I mean, really.
I would say.
Indeed, yes, indeed. But moving us on out of this news in Bulgaria, it's now time for us folks to move on and into the Russian Federation and all of the strikes that we've been able to see from Ukrainian drone forces here. Sadly, I was not able to get a drone attack vector map today to show you all where the drones were heading inside of Russia, but we have a general idea of where they were heading because we got all the clips of at least where they showed up a little bit near the border today. Starting us off in Tula with probably one of our more interesting clips, we did get to see the Russians are trying to use their helicopters a lot more these days to try and intercept and shoot down these drones. There's one of those slow-ass Ka-52s trying to shoot down a drone.
There's music in the background, too.
Oh, damn, I didn't even realize that, man. Moving us on from that brief clip, we also got another one showing us, I'm going to save the best for last. You know what? Actually, that is the last, at least in this area. We got to see a little bit of Russian air defense actions last night. It looks like it was just a whole bunch of Vadims that came out of the local village with some AKs and just started spraying and praying. Like, none of them are wearing uniforms. None of them really look like they're ready for this. They just kind of showed up out there. And I got to tell y'all, folks, the Russians got a big win last night. They finally shot one drone down, and it happened in this clip. So here's the clip and the insanity of it. Good God!
Music. Look at that. It's pure chaos.
Man, man, that's absolutely crazy right there.
Look at them. Look at it. Oh, they actually hit something, though. Look at that.
Man, I thought
that's wild.
I thought that music at the start, man, was like the sound of a gun. I was like, that's kind of a wild sound. I was like, kind of odd. I don't know what it is. I'm not recognizing music tonight, but man, they had every Gopnik out there from the mafia shooting at this thing.
Yeah, really. Also, how's the like the folks out here have tracer rounds like that? So they got these things loaded up with like a whole bunch of tracers.
Man, man, they raided an armory somewhere, man, and like they got like that big chunk, like those paper like sacks they put the ammo in, and it had like the tracer designation on the side. They said "Diesel doubly," man, like they said, loaded up 30 tracers, nothing but tracers. I mean, literally every single round was a tracer.
It's crazy too. It's like they're just like jumping out here with their rifles, just firing. Like they have no like organization or anything. They're standing out here like goons on the side of the road, just like trying to take the thing out.
Yeah, bro, that is insane. Oh my God. Also, speaking of which, we also were able to see that the Sizron refinery is still burning today. The Sizron refinery was hit and hurt last night, and it's still burning. 3 major fires.
Geez, that explains the NASA firm satellite data. Then the entire facility is burning on fire. It looked like pretty much all the primary processing units were hit, like virtually most of them.
You're talking about those condensators, those AVT6s?
Yeah.
Oh boy, oh man, that's good. That's good right there. That's expensive too. Here's a couple of more pictures of the fire and a video of it as well. We kind of just showed that one, but this one's a little bit shorter, so I think it might be different. And then this last picture here, once again, showing the plumes of smoke rising from Sizran. We also were able to see this clip here, also showing us the refinery. Man.
Let's see how big Sizran is real quick. I can't remember that off the top of my head. Let's see, refinery. What's the capacity of that facility right there? So, looking for the Wikipedia article on it, let's see if we have some information here. Let's see here. So, they said the huge fire engulfed it, but what's the capacity? So, it says 6.6 million tons of annual capacity. That's at the Lisky plant. So, 8.9 million tons of annual capacity at the Sizron plant. So, that's very significant. That one right there gets taken out. And it looks to me like that facility might be having a little bit of an extended outage from the 3 different major hits.
And what's the amount of barrels per day that it produces?
Let's see here. They don't like to give that. I was reading the Kyiv Post article there about that, and they didn't put it in barrels per day, which is kind of interesting because that's usually what you put that in there. But let me see here. Let me try to give me a second, see if I can find it.
Man, like everyone usually uses the barrels per day metric. Kyiv Independent out here using the tribbles per squibbit measurement to give us the refining capacity. It's like we want to know barrels per day. It's like by the way, folks, the reason why it's important for us is that all of our calculations and metrics are done on barrels per day. And so the Russians consume a certain amount of barrels per day. They produce a certain amount of barrels per day. So that number is very important because if the whole refinery was just knocked out, then it might be a significant impact.
So it looks like most people are actually generally putting it in that number right there, but they're saying roughly it's well over 100,000 barrels a day. It accounts for about 3% of the total Russian refining capacity. So it's very significant. That's a very large facility.
While we'll never get the barrels per day figure, folks, that's going to be missing forever. We do know that it is 3%, and that, folks, is a lot. That's a lot. So moving us on out of the Sizran refinery, and the fire still going on there, it's now time for us to move on down and into the coastal area. We'll be going back to Voronezh here in a minute, folks. There's no strike that happened there. It's just Zelensky talking about the Norks that have arrived in Voronezh. But moving us on down and into the Black Sea, we were able to see some footage now published by the Ukrainians recently of their strikes on ships within the Azov, the Sea of Azov. And I gotta say, the Sea of Azov is actually quite blue. Very nice looking. That's Novorossiysk, by the way, over there, and that's a Russian air defense missile that was fired from Novorossiysk at the air defense battery that's right at the mouth of the bay, right at this drone, and it missed. Oh,
Oh, dang. Yeah, I was it was definitely was not going to hit that, that's for sure. Also, they wasted an expensive missile on that. Look at them. Look at them go
a
again. They wasted
second one!
two.
Oh my god, bro! That's a second one! Bro, no wonder they're not hitting anything. Dude, that's what if the third one hit, folks, they have a 33% accuracy on those missiles. But now we're actually showing the full clip here. So here's let me make sure this is Novorossiysk. I want to make sure that I'm saying that correctly. This is a Pantsir. Let's see. Zafico. Let's see. I'm assuming this is Novorossiysk. The geography lines up heavily with it. Oh my god, bro, that's crazy.
These things are inaccurate as hell, although they are trying to hit a pretty fast-moving target, or at least a small one. So, look, I mean, look at them just wasting missile after missile. Look, here comes another one. Look at that.
Don't tell me there's a third. Oh, there is not a third. They gave up.
Ah, and they've made it through, and there's some ships here, it looks like.
Oh, wait a minute, there's a third. Oh.
Oh.
Oh, that
Where's
one
that one
missed. It's
going?
huge. Like, oh my god.
Man, they're going to end up hitting the ship before it's over with.
Man, number 207 out here.
I think that's a bad track record for the air defense.
Man, honestly, man, that means if the air defense had finally hit that drone, folks, with the fourth missile, they would have a 25% interception rate per missile, which means that you'd have to fire 4 of them to land a chance to hit once, which is horrific statistics. And there's that ship that was actually burning near Galinchik the other day. That was the one. That was the one entirely, actually.
The ghost ship, as they call it, out there, looking all ghostly and ghoulish, and also hit.
Man, terrible, honestly. Man, they just showed all these in a big batch right here. Number 210 to 213.
The trophies are getting so commonplace that they're showing them like it's nothing. Like, here's 4 of them in a row. We'll just show them. They got to show them to you 4 at a time. They're hitting so many.
Oh, number 218 was special. It got the full screen.
Man, they got so many hits. They're serving them up like a ham sandwich at the fast food restaurant. Like, order 219, 219.
Man, they knocking out so many
Oh,
of
it's
them.
Madjar.
Oh, would you look at that, Bleed? He's saying something. Well, moving us on from that on down and into the Kerch port area, we also got to see that one of the roll-on, roll-off cargo ships of Russia has reached Samsun, which is actually not here in Kerch. Let me just drag that down here. Boop. Boom, there we go. So it reached Samsun, and this is what it looked like. Oh!
Oh my. How did it strip the metal sheeting straight off the thing? Why is it the metal sheeting got like removed?
Well, what's really neat is that this Ukrainian drone, like inside of the bomb, they actually have 2 special components in the explosive. One of them is paint thinner, and then the other one is hydrochloric acid. And the paint remover helps remove the paint from the metal sheeting that's left. And then the hydrochloric acid breaks down the steel, or whatever the whole plating is made of the ship, down to its most basic component, thus removing the paint and also the metal. Isn't that neat?
Is that for real or is that BS?
That's just straight up BS, man. Like, I'm just coming up with an explanation for you.
Honestly, though, whatever like caused, I mean, that explosive, like, I guess maybe they burned the sides of the metal. I don't understand how that would happen.
I think it was just a fire that like broke out on the ship, And that's what has created all of this damage. You can actually see the impact site right there. There's the hole from the drone. Actually, two of them on the front of the ship. And so to show you another angle, there's the impact hole of one drone. And it looks like there was another one a little bit lower down, somewhere down here. But then the fire just break through the ship and just burned the paint off, and also warped a decent amount of the plating, because it looks like some of them have actually suffered some sort of structural damage. Although the superstructure isn't really important for the integrity of the ship. And then here's another wide shot picture, and it looks like there was a hit on one of the exhaust stacks at the stern of the vessel on the starboard side as well. Huh. This thing was hit quite heavily, actually.
I would say so.
Definitely indeed. Definitely indeed. Moving us on out of Samsun and on up in towards the area of Novorossiysk and Glenchik, we also were able to see the Ukrainian drones conducting their attacks against more Russian ships, filmed by Turkish sailors. Let's take a look. Oh, muting that. I called that one. There goes the Ukrainian drone.
Oh, you know they hate it when those things just scoot by like that, like just scooting over. They're not sure if it's going for them or somebody else. Oh, there goes another one. Look at that. Look, it's the Shahed copy, the new one.
It's that little one with the stubby wings and the canards, the one built for speed. It is going pretty fast right there, too. I mean, like, look at that thing.
And these guys have no defense. They're sitting there hoping it doesn't take a dive at the last second, but there it goes.
Oh, here comes another. Yeah, those things actually go pretty speedy.
Look at that. Somebody's getting hit. It's like a Russian roulette out here. I guess the Russians are playing their old version of roulette.
Man, that's just wild. Like, that's absolutely wild. There's buzzing ships out there all day long. Moving us on from those clips and closer to the port, we also got to see a drone strike on one of these ships. You want to see what that looks like? Well, here you go. Oh! It's right there! Whoa!
Dang. I guess I think it got hurt.
Bruh. Oh my god, man, a muscle just snapped in my neck. That did not feel great. But man, outside of that, though, while I try and figure out, folks, if I can still speak, because that one felt quite meaningful right there. Like, I went, oh man, and then like the vocal thing, like a muscle like near to my like esophagus, it like felt like it just like popped or snapped or something.
Man, the hit was so large it snapped the esophagus through the LCD screen. It reached out and snapped a neck in the process of snapping this ship right apart. But I tell you what, that was a hell of a hit there. And you know that's why these other ships that see these things flying over must be so horrified. I mean, that thing just took a last second little small decline right into the top of the ship's like a control center like that and hit the thing. I mean, that is serious. And also, it was so powerful it knocked the camera off the side of the wall, which was nowhere near where the hit was.
Man, honestly, man, crazy stuff. Also, here it is again, just to show y'all. There it is. That was crazy.
It was so slow. It just like cruised right into the thing. It was like comical how slow it was going.
Man, like real. Honestly, also, that's one of the higher speed ones too. It's got the little canards on it and the cut wings. And they apparently slow them on down to make sure they get an accurate hit, apparently.
Yeah, gotta give him an operator a good time to get a good aim in. I guess you could say. That's all, folks. But I tell you what, though, that's a huge hit.
Like, man, like, oh man, bro, what makes this?
Are you good?
Man, like, I was just adding into what you were doing right there.
Oh man, I thought that snapping of the neck got your vocal cords all like wobbly. I was like, what's he doing over there?
Oh no, it's all good now. Whatever it was, it went away pretty quickly. But that was quite unsettling, folks. That did not feel, whatever that was, that did not feel physically right, like at all. But beyond that, though, man, that one sailor, though, man, he added to the comical side of things, man. At the beginning, you just hear nothing. You hear him going, Zakoi! Zakoi! Right? He's just like running around the deck. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. And then this thing just comes gliding in the last few seconds. But moving us on from that and on towards the port of Glenchik, we also were able to see another large explosion here near to the coastline. Take a look at this. Oh, I don't know what it is with the music these days, folks, but they're really trying to camouflage that stuff, at least to my ear. There's the smoke rising in the distance.
Looks like they did a number on it. The vacationers are looking like, is that normal out there?
Man, they're sitting there going, I don't think this is like a tourist attraction. Man, like it's like, no, it's not. We also got to see that there were some explosions in the area in these additional pictures as well, largely showing the same explosion. And finally, we were able to see that satellite photography has confirmed that it was an electronic warfare unit that got freaking obliterated from the strike, whatever it was. These are the little electronic warfare units that they had in the area. Apparently, these systems are about $1.5 million and attempt to disrupt Starlink connections to these drones that are attacking the Galinshik port area. And apparently, they didn't work too well because the drone just flew in and blew them up. So that system is no longer operational. Very unfortunate for the Russians. Not that it was really doing anything good. We also got to see a little bit of what was going on down in Tuapse today.
Сейчас еще один будет.
Oh,
Второй тоже попал, да?
just a little cargo ship got blown up right off the coast.
Нет, куда? Да он четко в него, смотри, он дымит прям четко с него. Ужас.
What a scene.
Бедные мужики, что не
Man, also, man, it's like, who the hell would want to go to this beach, bro? It's like, yes, I would like to step on knife-edge stones, please, to get to the water.
Yeah, really, this is that rock treatment. This is where they put people in Guantanamo when they wanted to tell the secrets. They put them on a bed of rocks like that and press on them and like, tell us what we want to know. And they're like, no, I'm not telling you. And they're like, okay, put them with the cold water in the cell. And then they put them in the cold water. But yeah, this is rough. This is not even a beach, really.
Bro, they said, let's get out there and sit on these burning ass rocks, please, and go swim in water. It's like, no wonder they want to go to Crimea, man. It's like, they don't want to be on these jagged ass rocks walking over. Oh my God.
I tell you what, this is a rocky road for the Russians. So, it's been a rocky road the whole time. The war's been going. I would say this beach is symbolic of that. It's a sign.
Man, real trap shit, honestly.
Странно, конечно, больше часа прошло.
You see him filming it again. I will say the water is extremely calm out there.
Но не оттуда.
Do you know why they call this Russian area 2 ops?
Why do they call it that?
Because that's who will rob you. If you go to this beach, the 2 ops are going to pull up and rob the hell out of you and take everything out of your pockets, run your pockets.
Man, honestly, also, what? Bro, did he have to, like, climb down a ladder to get on this damn beach? Look at that clip.
Oh, wow, look. A brand new biome over there on the right. It's like a mystical forest over here, and then you have the rocky beach over here on the left.
I'm not gonna lie, man. This is starting to remind me of like the beaches of Oregon. Like their big cliffs and everything. That I don't know. Nah, this ain't Oregon. Oregon's nicer than this. But I gotta say, what a weird place this guy was filming in. Bro, he's sitting there in a Minecraft biome in the background. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, boy, yeah, they blew up a boat out there at sea. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. And then he gets done with that, bro. He starts jumping up the cliff to get back to wherever his little Minecraft house is. Bro, honestly, man, kind of weird stuff going on down there in Tuapse. But moving us on out of the Black Sea, finally, it's now time for us, folks, to move on up and into Voronezh. Because we got some news from Zelensky today on the North Koreans. Zelensky stated that the North Koreans appear on the territory of the Russian Federation from time to time. We see it and we know it. Man, real shit. At first it was about hundreds, then thousands. Now it's been decided that from 30 to 50,000 North Koreans will be on the territory of Russia. They are studying this war. And if we are talking about cruises and escalations in another direction in the Pacific Ocean, which could be a threat to other states in the Asian direction, then of course North Korea will gain experience in modern warfare under Russia. We have already found North Korean missiles on the territory of Ukraine. Today, this is already a recognized fact. Therefore, in my opinion, the Republic of Korea should have closer cooperation with Ukraine. We are open. We would very much like to receive support from South Korea in the form of the deficit that we have. These are air defense systems, and we are ready to work in the direction of the drone deal, etc. So, Zelensky said, damn, those North Koreans are in Russia. Hey, South Korea, you want to give us something? Like, bro, it's like real, man, bro. Man, he said, hey, I don't know.
The last time they did. I think the last time South Korea actually did do something over that, they kind of like pitched in because, they felt sympathetic because their enemy was helping out the Russians. I think they kind of did.
I think they did. I forgot what they gave. Actually, I don't really remember what they gave. I think what it was is that they opened up Hyundai Rotem factories in Ukraine and also I think in Poland to produce equipment specifically for the Ukrainian armed forces. And I don't think anything's been delivered yet. I think that's what they dedicated themselves to last time. So now Zelensky is sitting there going, "Hey, I want to stop like North Korean missiles from like blowing us up." Could you give us like a Patriot or a couple or maybe a lot of them? But luckily, Zelensky will not have to worry about that for long because he did say today, and I don't know how long this is going to last, but he said today that the U.S. will supply Ukraine with Patriot interceptor missiles monthly. This has not been signed and put down into writing, though, and even if it was, I'm not entirely sure if this is going to happen. But Zelensky added that the U.S. deliveries alone will not be enough, and he urged European countries to help provide additional missiles. So I don't know if the U.S. is really going to give them Patriots. To be entirely honest with you all, I expect that they're not, and this was just a goodwill statement that the president made that has absolutely no intention of following through on it, but we'll have to wait and see if that is the case or not. So moving us on out of the Patriot news, and also Zelensky's call to South Korea to go, hey, give us some. It's time for us to move on down into Belgorod. Today in Belgorod, something interesting happened. Ukrainian drones arrived in the city, but they started to hit inside the central area of the city, and we don't know why. Here's Russian air defense trying to shoot down one of those incoming drones.
Oh.
Like World War II out there.
Missed me.
Bro, the Ukrainians just went, oh, look, they're firing. They pulled a hard left, and that got the Russians to miss completely. We also were able to see up in the downtown Belgorod area some of the impacts. Here's one of them. Oh!
Oh! Oh, dear. Got the people really riled up. Honestly, that was a little bit interesting. They lit up the curtains and was caught on fire.
Man, that was pretty close, honestly. We also got to see a picture of the impact mushroom clouds rising over central Belgorod. We do not know if that was the same drone that we just saw getting shot at that blew up in downtown Belgorod, but the explosions were humongous. We also were able to see in this clip as well another one of the drones impacting a target. This one is incredibly short. Moving us on from that clip, we also got one more last clip showing the fire in Belgorod, and it appears that an apartment building may have been hit as a result of one of the drone strikes in the downtown area. We're not sure if the Russian air defense shot it down and it landed on that building, or whether it was deliberately gunning for that building. None of that's known, but we do know that there were several major explosions in downtown Belgorod, and it appears that there has been some significant damage as a result. Moving us on out of all of this, it's now time for us to finally move on and into the front lines of Ukraine, which there was plenty of news to get today. In the area of Troistinets, to cover the Russian attacks on Ukraine, which are quite unfortunate but are part of the war, we did see that a Russian Garan 4 jet-powered drone did attack a Ukrainian residential building in the city of Troistinets in the Sumy Oblast, shown here in this clip. Oh, and we'll have to mute that. I don't know what's up with music being in every single clip.
Man, you were like blind to the music, man. The music's just getting by.
I got that in like a quarter of a second, man. Like, I just didn't expect it. I thought the fact that it was filmed by a Ukrainian, showing a Ukrainian house getting blown up, that they probably wouldn't include music in it, but somehow music is included. Like, that honestly took me kind of by surprise, off guard in a way. But we can see the Garan 4 hitting here right next to the house and destroying another one just across from it on the street.
Yikes.
Moving us on from that unfortunate clip and on into our location unknowns, we were able to see this absolutely wild-looking M113.
That is insane. That's like a Mad Max vehicle, really. Is that a Humvee over there too? In the comments over there, you see that?
Yes.
There it is, right there. Yeah, these are honestly quite crazy. It's like just a humongous like chain link fence they put over it. Apparently it works though, because everybody's replicating it. Also, look, they like put like loose chains over the doors. Like, do you have to detach every single chain when you want to get in and out?
That's a good question. I don't. Oh, wait a minute. Well, I think I'm understanding this. I had to look at it there really quickly to try and understand it. I think it's so that way you can open up the door, and the chains allow for the door to open up a little bit more than the cage would normally allow. And then it looks like there's a possible small little door they built into the chain link that you pop open to get in and out. So it looks like it's a multi-door kind of a process to get in and out, but the chains look like they're stuck in place and don't move.
Interesting. Yeah, I would hate for that thing to roll over or something. It seems like if it rolled over and crushed the fence like on the side of the door or something, you'd be trapped in the Humvee at that point. At least it seems like it.
Oh, no. Correction. Oopsie daisy. The chains allow for the door to hinge. Because I just saw on this back one here, like, look really closely at this. You see those bars that are connected to the top of the door that connect this part back here? There's a little
Yeah.
gap in between that and the greater part of the cage, and the chains are there to allow for the door to swing open, but to also not have to, like, attach a whole new hinge or build out the cage part on the door to where it's so wide that if you tried to open the door, you'd get jammed on the actual cage. So that's what the chains are for.
Interesting.
Very interesting. But we had to get to the bottom of this, of course. But we also, getting back to that M113, wild little creature. Look at the little fella. They've come such a long way from when we sent them into Ukraine. When we sent them into Ukraine, they were just little M113s. Now look at how much they've grown into full-grown hedgehogs. They're doing well. But moving us on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see this very interesting picture here of Ukrainian Mi-24 with all of its kill marks included. And damn. That's a lot of them. Almost 100 of them, actually.
That's a hell of a lot. That's more than I think. What was that? What was that thing that shot down the Chinese spy balloon? It was like their first air-to-air kill. What was the
F-22?
aircraft? F-22. This plane right here has more kills than the F-22 at his helicopter.
Man, here's another Mi-24 provided by the Czechs with even more, kills marked on it.
Well, that's a lot.
Man, Ukrainian helicopters be doing that work in the drone defense. But moving us on from that and into our next little bit, we got to see, folks, something we haven't seen in a minute. The Rudnik Bliet.
Oh, oh
Here's the
no.
clip. Oh.
Oh no. Look at him. Oh, that is so jank. That is bad. Look at that. The rear axle is crying for help. Look, it's about to flip over. Oh my gosh, man. That thing is not rated for that, man. That axle is going to snap.
Bro,
Look at that.
Look at the tire, man. The
Plunker.
tire's about to blow up.
This thing's crying for help. It said, please, I have to get off of the trunk, please. It said, please it, Father Ivan.
Dude, also, man, look at this. Like, the front rims are totally different than the rear rims. Like, the rear rim is like the original stock one, and then this one's like the absolute Gopnik. Putting the rims with like an old gas or something.
Yeah, nothing says your military is well equipped than them loading into a jalopy with the axle crying for help and going to the front line.
Man, one bump and those rear tires, man, are exploding. Like, both of them. Like, you're just gonna hear loud booms coming from the back of that thing. Oh my god. Bro, also, who the hell was that guy flying past at 900 miles an hour on a dirt bike? Like, look in the background, man. He's gone. It's like, the hell? Bro, this whole thing's a scene.
Awful.
Moving us on from that clip, it's now time for us to get to the Russian casualty report. Now, we know that the number is going to be high because the Russians are doing stupid stuff like that, what we just showed y'all. So, let's get into it. Oh, boy, 2 Bobcats!
Oh, they got 2 of them. Look at that. Nice. 2 Bobcats. 2.
2 Bobcats, boy, 2 Bobcats. And over the course of the past 24 hours, Mr. Easton Keeper of the record stated that the pace has slowed down, but there is a ship! Hey! And 6 anti-aircraft are tied for 4th highest daily loss, and 10 ground robotic complexes is tied as the 10th highest, which isn't shown. And over the course of the past 24 hours, we were able to see that 1,190 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed, along with 1 APC, 349 supply trucks, 4 main battle tanks, 58 artillery pieces, 1,751 drones, 1 MLRS, 6 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and 2 Bobcat skid steers. Overall, not a bad day, including the 1 boat/warship. It was a beautiful day, and we absolutely love to see it. Moving us on out of that, it's now time for us to get on down and into the front lines themselves. And I'm sure that you all know that today is as action-packed as any other day, so let's get right into it. Moving us on and into the area of the Vovchansk front, the Ukrainian armed forces were continuing to destroy Russian infantry positions with artillery strikes. Artillery strikes are not wildly common at this point in the war, but every once in a while the Ukrainians whip out the fine china and really give the Russians what for. Now let's take a look at the Ukrainian artillery here, giving a real workover on the Russians. We see them here knocking out their position and quite literally collapsing the building on top of them. Call that a demolition operation, the way they be taking that thing down.
What is this, the Medusa Brigade? What's up with their emblem?
Oh, that'd just be someone at like a EDM festival or something. Probably nothing big. Probably no big deal, really.
You know what?
Like an EDM festival, it's like those raves or whatever.
Oh.
You know, they dress up in that weird stuff, you know, it's like neon and everything.
Man, I guess maybe they are. Maybe.
Maybe so, but I'll tell you one thing that the Ukrainians are, they're the bee's knees, the Jiminy Crickets. Look at them go. They teaching the Russians lessons, you know? Much like that little Jiminy Cricket thing did in Pinocchio. You know, in the real story, Pinocchio actually killed that cricket, right? In the Disney one, he didn't. I don't know why they didn't show that in the Disney one. But beyond that, though, look at the work. It's incredible. So many Russian positions blown away. Look, a couple of Russians. It's like spotting an endangered species these days. The Ukrainians are about to make it more endangered.
Do you know why the Russians are trying to run so fast in the front lines?
Why, Matthew?
Because they don't have any more time for Stalin.
Oh man, and they too busy Putin, and they need to hit that restroom. Oh, I guess you could say they're running into that shithole to get blown away. Oh, we're on a roll. Oh my god. Oh, Brianna.
Jeez.
We're about to start destroying people here with the cringe, man. They're gonna be like, that's it, I'm done. It's on out of the Vovchansk area and on down the front. We also were able to see in the Luhansk area that the Ukrainian drone was able to get a lucky strike last night and knock down the entire parking lot filled with semis. Observe the destruction and carnage of which we are able to see here in this abandoned parking lot. The trucks are completely done for.
This is what happens after the Russians get done running around because they ain't got no time for Stalin. This is when they have time for sitting. That joke made no sense, but, you know, we're going to roll with it anyway. Look at it.
Man, I guess you could say they wiping the ass with linen after that kind of treatment. Oh, hit me with that drum roll. Oh, like that, man.
Oh, man, you can't put me on like that now. I can't get to it that quick.
Oh, hey, there we go. Hey, that's my boy. That's my boy right there. I'm just losing it, folks, because we're trying to keep the energy up here. But also moving us on towards the Bakhmut area, we also saw this wild deal: a Russian mobile fire group in the wild. That's music. Okay, I was like, I'm not sure if that's the engine, so that's music. But here's a little mobile fire group firing out the back of their shitty Lada. Who is that?
Oh, wow. They have the shirtless gang out here, dude with large gut, firing rifle, sort of at an odd angle.
Man, that's his body armor. Whoa, look at that boiler. Oh man, there's the Ukrainian drone. It looks like this guy's firing a little bit high and behind.
Hold on a minute. Back the video up. Is that an electrical line on a stick?
What, Matthew, are you judging the underprivileged Russians and their electrical work?
That's an electrical line on a stick. That's a electrical infrastructure on a twig.
Also, man, I don't think that's grounded properly. I think you walk up to that thing, you might get zapped.
I think it might. Also, that thing is not straight.
Out of this whole clip, man, you point out the one thing I didn't notice. It's like, wait a minute, is that a wire being held up on a twig? It's like, yes, yes, it is. Man, that is insane. But also, this guy is firing nuts. High and behind. And I bet that all these guys are as well.
This looks like some half track, like out of the German days of World War II. These dudes are shooting out of. The dude standing on the roof.
Also, this clown just burned his hand. Did you see that? He touched it.
Yeah, he does. He got a little nice burning.
Man, he went, and he's like, oh yeah, that's number one. Man, I'm honestly so sad, man. They just don't know what's gotten into them. We also were able to see that down here in the area of the Dobropilya front, some Russians got taken out by a landmine. Oh, old Bessie's already gone through a lot from this rattling. And we all know, oh, Leon!
Oh. Oh, wow.
Sounds like old...
Jubail! Я нормально.
Oh my gosh.
The headlights.
Dang, they blew away the hood and everything. Look at all that electronic warfare they have on the top, too. They got a whole suite.
Bro, they have every EW system they could ever have. Oh my god, bro, that is ridiculous. Man, look at this.
Absolutely useless.
Oh yeah, bro, the way he got casually out of the car and the whole front end got blown off. That was hilarious. Let's watch this one more time, folks. Let's watch this one more time. Oh my god, the rattling and shit. All that's doing way too well. Oh, yeah. Oh. And then he just gets out all calm, like he's like, oh, well. Just hear the engine shitting out in the background. He's taking way too much damage.
Живой? Я нормально.
Oh my lord, man. I gotta tell you, man, the Russians come up with some absolutely crazy stuff. You know what it's like? You know what it's like watching? It's like watching that game that was based off of Angry Birds, like with the pigs. Y'all know the game I'm talking about, right? It was like on the phone a long time ago, like 10 years ago. And like you could like build these stupid contraptions that usually blow up and like kill the pigs that you put on them. Like, I feel like that's like the Russians literally at this point. It's just that game. Like with how they operate on the front, they have so many clips that come out that are just so stupid it's beyond imagination, like some Looney Tunes type stuff, really. But moving us on down the line, we also got to see a HIMARS destroying a Mista S in the rear line areas today behind Pokrovsk. We can actually see that little Mista S right there. Yeah, Bad Piggies, that's what it is. I'm the real. That is what it is. It's the Bad Piggies game.
Also, by the way, real quick, I was trying to check on a breaking news story I might have here in a second. I might have breaking news possibly out of the Middle East here in just a second. I'm trying to do some more follow-ups on it real quick before I actually report on it.
Oh, well, please share with us once we can verify. I'd like to know. I'm quite interested. That sounds quite interesting right there. But moving us on down the line and towards the Velika Novoselka area, we also had to see that the 57th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces captured a couple of Russian prisoners today. Beast bump. Boom. And now they go find the guys. Look, there they are. Prisoners. Fist bump. Oh, yeah. This guy looks a little hyped up. And there's the Russian prisoners. They have surrendered. The news is breaking, and so am I. Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we have some breaking news right now out of the Middle East. It looks like we just gotten word that not only was there a facility that was likely attacked on the most easternly side of Saudi Arabia, we're now hearing that apparently there was a fire at the refinery in Jazan, which is, by the way, the place that has been attacked before by the Houthi forces. It took a pretty bad hit the last time we saw the Houthis take strikes out of Saudi Arabia. So it looks like they're saying they've extinguished a fire at that location that broke out at the facility, but they are being extremely careful with the way they're wording that report. They're saying that they extinguished a fire, and they're really not saying much beyond that. They're trying to pretend like it wasn't attacked. So I would say it's fair to say that both of those facilities, the one that we saw earlier and the Jazan facility, have likely been attacked. And I would say that's very, very likely. I'm trying to see here some more details about it. They're saying no injuries right now, but we don't have any video or picture evidence out of that area at the very moment. We do have an image here purporting to show that gas plant on fire, though. Let's see here. Yeah, we do have an image purporting to show that. I don't know if this image is accurate, but this is located just north of Bahrain, and they're saying this is the Berry gas plant in Saudi Arabia that was allegedly attacked by the Houthis from Yemen. So if the image is authentic, it looks like Saudi Arabia is coming under a pretty significant, wide-ranging attack tonight, and it's not being reported very heavily. It seems like it's getting covered up to a large degree, which is probably a U.S. initiative to tamp down any escalations that could be happening anytime soon. But it sounds like the Houthis and also possibly the Iraqi forces that are operating out of Iraq that are Iran-aligned could be launching severe attacks that we're seeing right here in these images.
It could also be that the Saudis are trying to tamp this down on their own, so that way they don't have to get involved in greater escalations against the Iranian proxies or Iran on their own as well. But still, this is very interesting, folks, because it looks honestly to me, Matthew, like it may have been that proxy attack that the proxies claimed they were holding off on yesterday, and they may have just quietly conducted it, and the Saudis are trying to cover it up for one reason or another.
Yeah, and that's a really bad sign right there because the Houthis are operating at the leisure of Iran, and Iran's saying that they're trying to, iron out a deal. But in the meantime, though, we're seeing them mobilize their forces inside of Iraq. We're seeing them mobilize the Houthis, and the Houthis are pretty well armed. Like they got the drones, missiles, they got an arsenal at their disposal. Apparently, they've gotten some replenishments apparently over the last couple of weeks. So this situation, I would say, folks, it's fair to say it is far from being over at this point, and they can can only cover this up for so long because it's going to get more coverage. It's obviously going to test the diplomacy that's at play here, and I would say it's just a matter of time till this turns really, really ugly. I'd imagine it's probably just a matter of time.
Probably so, I would agree. But the big thanks to Enforcer Matt for sharing that breaking news for us that we just got on air. And it does seem that that might be a decent likelihood there that that was just the proxy attacks that were conducted against Saudi Arabia, and for some reason they're being covered up. But I would also add that that probably is going to be leading to the chance behind the scenes for the U.S. and the Gulf states to choose escalation with Iran over largely a surrender and a capitulation and giving the Iranians exactly what they want. So moving us on out of that bit of news and directly down into the Zaporizhia front, we also were able to see that the 65th Ronin unit was targeting and hitting Russian forces today and Russian logistics down in the southern Zaporizhia region. They're closing in. They're closing in. They're getting them good. Man, I gotta say, man, the news just doesn't die down these days, do it?
No, it's always happening somewhere. Like right now, it's a bit of a lull, I would say. Like over this past few days, it's been in a bit of a lull, but I wouldn't expect it to stay that way for long. I would imagine Putin's going to be mobilizing people. Iran's going to be probably getting their crap kicked in by the U.S. because they're forced with no other option. So I would suspect that people can enjoy the small lull in the intensity of the news, but it's probably going to be back pretty soon with a vengeance.
Man, honestly, I would agree. I would agree at this point. I think it's definitely back on. I definitely think it's back on. You know, Maddie, I actually heard that Mike Tyson had some words on this. He actually was watching the show and he said that we were like the men who see like everything going on. And he said, "Yeah, it's those Yemeni Houthis,
Oh yeah,
Yemen Houthi. It's the men who see Yemen Houthis. You get it?
man, I
It's a
guess I
it's a
guess so.
it's a play on words. It's got to go along with it." Man, like it just gotta go along with it.
Man, I
But
wasn't quite registering that one, but fair enough.
I see, say, Sir Nicholas got it. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate that. But man, they are going to work on them down here in the 65th Ronin. Holy smokes. Goodness. Oh, look, that's actually a kind of nice car. Shame. Man, someone said, "Oh man, move on. Josh, I thought you was a nice guy, but really you're just a rat piece of shit." Oh, come on, mate. Nah, man, F you. You're a rat piece of shit. If you don't like it, turn off your station. But anyways, you can see they're really doing some work here on this little buhanka. But that's the end of the clip, and it's now time for us folks to move on to our last clip, which unfortunately came out of the Pavlorad area, and we were able to see the Russian Federation did hit the city of Pavlorad pretty badly today, which resulted in a grocery store and a general shopping area in the city being hit. It was filled with civilians at the time, and we have gotten reports out that there was a significant amount of wounded and possible dead that were coming out of the rubble from the aftermath of this attack earlier today. Very unfortunate to see. But with that, that is the end of that clip, and that is going to be rounding out our news segment for the entirety of the day. And that's going to be moving us on into the second segment of the stream where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And I gotta say, folks, that it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to run this stream for all y'all once again tonight and to cover the news. We always try our best to make sure that the news is as well reported as it can be, and I hope that we were able to do that tonight. We had a peak viewership, according to YouTube right now, of 16.3 thousand people. So if it's anything like last night, that's in reality about 17.1 thousand people who were actually here, and 82,000 people who've watched up until this point 2 hours in. And I've got to thank y'all greatly once again for y'all's incredible time that y'all have spent here, hours here. And with that, it's time for us to move on to the questions where we can talk about literally anything and everything except for religion, politics, climate change, whether the A-10 is relevant in modern warfare, whether we should nuke Iran in certain sorts of incidents. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night and getting our super chats, our live chats, and our Morse code decoders of the stream, we have some very interesting questions to get to. So, jumping right into our first super chat, this one goes to none other than Tom S. LSA, and he puts in a $100 support.
Hey!
And thank you very much, Tom, for that generous support and helping to keep the channel running with that 100. That's what's known as a Alexander Graham Bell bill note right there, I believe. What do they call 100, by the way?
That's a Benjamin Franklin.
That's a Benjamin Franklin. He invented the telegram. That's what he did right there. That good system where they put the encryption on it. Thank you very much, Thomas, for that support. He said, "Thank you for the hard work and long live the LSA, and please take one from the chat."
And a humongous thanks to you for the support, Tom Esmond, LSA. We thank you greatly for that support of the channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, we always greatly appreciate you for being here. You've been here for a very long time, Thomas LSA. You've been here for a very long time. Yes, you're an all-gone a channel legend. And we greatly appreciate you for supporting this channel massively tonight and helping us to keep this thing on air and keeping it running. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat in your honor. And so, Matthew, what do we got here?
So the one from the live chat in honor of Tom S. is going to go to Santa Fe Railroad, who said, "How long do you think these mobilized people will even be trained?"
Probably not.
Honestly,
that
that's a
long.
good question. Yeah, really. I mean, if they've already like barely trained the people they already have, that's a lot less than what they're planning to mobilize from the sounds of it. Then, I mean, I think right now they're getting like 2 weeks of training. Like on average, they're getting about 2 weeks, and that's 2 weeks of very pitiful training too. And not that they need to train them a whole bunch. I mean, when the Russians arrive at the front lines, they're out there for like what 20 or 30 minutes or something like that, and then the Ukrainians take them out with a drone. So they're basically having to train them completely in drone counter warfare, and they're armed with an AK. So you have an inaccurate AK rifle trying to shoot at a fast-moving FPV drone, and that's why they're only lasting for 20 or 30 minutes. So they're really just not properly equipped, and no amount of training was really good enough to combat that, at least in my opinion.
I would say they're probably going to get very little training because, from what we know, the only training that current contract soldiers get is how to operate an AK rifle, and that's a very, very small crash course on how to operate an AK. It's not really like you need a lot, if I'm being entirely honest, but they give them a little crash course, and then they kind of run them through a very little amount of how squad level tactics work. And then they send them straight to the front. And there's basically nothing else involved. There's no physical training. There's no how would we call it here in the United States? Breaking people down mentally and rebuilding them to follow orders without question. That's why a lot of Russians go AWOL, and also why command and discipline is very difficult to enforce in the Russian army, is because there isn't really any enforcement of that in basic to kind of lay out the culture or understanding that that's how it would be. And there isn't really a lot of additional job training involved either. So they're basically just raw like bodies to just be thrown straight into the meat grinder with very little training, very little equipment. And so I would say they're probably going to be trained about as good as the contract soldiers, because they're not going to give them any different training. Like, they're not going to go, well, these are conscripts, so let's give them less, or they're conscripts, so let's give them more. They're going to give them the exact amount the contract troops are getting at the training camps that exist in Russia, which is going to be basically next to nothing. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, Santa Fe Railroad. And I got to say a big thanks to you for that live chat. A big thanks to Tom Espen for sponsoring the live chat and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to none other than RCH Technologies, who puts in a
Hey!
$20 support. And thank you very much as well, good sir, for the 20. And we do appreciate that. He said, LSA,
LSA, and it's good to see you here, RCH Technologies. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you're still on the mend from the last time we heard from you. I remember the last time we had heard from you, you were still recovering from the stroke, and I hope that's still going well, and that the physical therapy and everything else to get your arm working again is going great. And so humongous thanks to you for having been here tonight. I saw that was one of the first super chats that came in during the stream. I said, oh, look, RCH is here. I hope he's doing well. And then we unmuted and got ready to run the show. But still, I do hope that you've been doing well and have been improving, and it's a great thing to see that you're here tonight. And I got to thank you greatly for the support as well and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next. Also, I saw some people say, like Cerbro said, yeah, breaking it down and retraining was boot camp when I was serving in Old Warriors of behavioral conditioning. And that's a really big part of the training that happens here in the U.S., because everyone that I've ever heard talk about boot camp if they want to call it that, or basic training, whatever they want to call it. Everyone basically says that it's just attempting to try and mentally break you down in a way, so that way you'll just accept the orders that are given no matter what. And some people have said, well, I kind of saw the point in it. Some people said that it was supposed to be scary, but it more so came off as funny, and you just weren't allowed to laugh. And then some other people said that it was pretty stupid. Like I've heard some people that are still in the military. I was like, well, I was basic, and they're like, it was stupid. Like I didn't even get really the point of this whole thing. But beyond that, though, generally that's the main thing that I've heard of basic here in the U.S. It doesn't really teach a whole lot. Like it teaches like very minimal basics, and also breaks you down and kind of rebuilds you to understand how military culture works, or that specific branch's culture works. Because of course the Marines, like the Marines are known in the United States for even still for the largest amounts of hazing incidents, and that's really to try and get people kind of accustomed to just the running culture of the Marines. And then once you get out of basic, you go to job training, and then that's when you actually learn everything you really need to know is a job training, which is kind of like depending on the branch. Some people say it's kind of like basic, but it's a lot less intense. And then other people say there was absolutely nothing like basic, and it was basically kind of like a small college course. But that kind of depends on the branch. I've heard that it was more like a small college course and kind of like basic, very little like basic in the Space Force. And then other branches are like, it's a lot like basic, but you also were actually learning what you need to know. A very interesting sort of a thing. And also what's even more interesting is that some countries really don't do that at all, like even in peacetime. Like a decent amount of South American countries don't really do that because the military is more of a clique that you get into than an actual armed fighting force. But in other countries like Chile, which wildly enough are actually very big into military doctrine and discipline, you can actually see that they are very, very, very extremely into trying to get people acclimated and really put into or ingrained into that sort of a military cultural mindset. Very interesting sort of a thing with how it's different from place to place. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A little interesting side note. I've never been through basic myself, but I've heard from everyone who has been through it, and everyone's got a different opinion on it, if and or the other. But we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Punisher of the North, who puts in a 20 as well. And thank you very much, Punisher of the North, as well, for continuing to support the channel. And we do appreciate it. He said, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt are the best. And thank you, good sir. He said, Dad, Mom, and Enforcer Daniel are all watching this evening in LLT LSA.
Hey, that's really cool to hear. And a big shout out to Enforcer Daniel. Big hello to him. Hope he's doing well once again. And a big shout out to Dad and Mom. Punisher Dad and Punisher Mom. And I gotta say, I hope y'all are doing all well tonight. I hope y'all been enjoying the show. And I hope that it's been great. And I gotta thank you greatly for the kind words and help with this channel to keep it running, Punisher of the North. And I think that's really neat to know that it's a whole family approach over there at Punisher HQ. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
And our next one goes to Cerberus3, who puts in a 20. Actually, two $20 supports. And thank you very much, Cerberus, for those two supports. His first one said, hello all, and I hope everybody's doing good and taking care of yourself, and currently making a big batch of bolognese spaghetti sauce for a neighbor's community potluck tomorrow. And thank you, Enforcers, for the news, and one from the chat, please.
And I gotta thank you greatly for the support, Cerberus. And I gotta say that I can make a mean beef bolognese. That's about the only thing I can cook. Beyond that, though, I gotta say, we've been doing quite well over here. We've been doing quite well. Honestly, I would have to say, sadly, my life personally is kind of boring because outside of doing this, I kind of just do basic it's like a job like any other. I just do my basic errands and then kind of hang around and try and kill time before I start getting to work again. But I do have to say, outside of that, everything's been pretty fun. It's been pretty enjoyable. And I hope that batch of bolognese spaghetti is going to be delicious. I don't think, Matthew, have we ever had bolognese spaghetti? I think we've just had like spaghetti.
I've cooked bolognese spaghetti, not the sauce. I usually get the sauce in the glass jar from the store usually, but I've cooked a couple of those things. I'm trying to remember. It's the something rigatoni, like spicy Italian sausage rigatoni. That's the one right there. I usually cook that one. And then I have the spaghetti too that I occasionally cooked. I learned all my stuff from HelloFresh. So that's how I learned to cook like all the way together. I had no idea what I was doing before that. Without that, I mean, we're not sponsored by the way, but without that company, I would have no clue what I was doing.
Man, If only they could sponsor. like,
Honestly, like, can they sponsor in retrospect to give them a nice shout out?
Yeah, maybe. But beyond that, though, huge thanks to you for your support, Cerberus, and helping this channel to keep it running. And we will take one from the chat. But before we do, I saw Saint Sir Nicholas say maybe play a war game or watch movies. I actually did that today to kill time. There's a really cool game that I love. And I haven't played it in a while because you have to really sit down and dedicate yourself to it. But it's called Vic 3. And it's a Victorian era nation management game. So spreadsheet simulator, basically. And you sit down and you pick a country in 1836 and you guide it all the way through, I think, the 1936, which is when the game ends. And today I decided to pick something I've never done before because I was like, you know what? I want to do something interesting. I was like, what about I take Mexico and I try and untrain wreck it and make it into a country that's successful. So, in 1836, if y'all don't know, before we get to this live chat here, just to go into a neat rabbit hole about the game, in 1836, a lot of y'all will know that Mexico actually controls what is modern day New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, California, and Arizona. And also in 1836, at that time, the Texas-Mexican War, or the Texan War of Independence, is ongoing. So I fought that war, and I won it against Texas and actually returned it back to a province of Mexico. But after that, I was like, damn, America's going to hate me for this. So I started trying to improve relations with the United States, and at the same time beat them in the colonization race out here in the far west to try and get more land than them. And then I turned my focus, while all that was going on up there in the U.S., I turned my focus back down into Mexico, and I started trying to improve literacy, because if you improve literacy, that's a very, very important thing to do inside of a country in that game, and really in real life as well, as to improve education and literacy. I got the, weirdly enough, I got the Catholic Church voted out, and I got the liberal people in, which I had to have to be able to get the schools going. So then I passed the laws to get the public schools up and running to increase the literacy rate, built a whole bunch of coal mines, iron mines, and everything else, and tried to industrialize Mexico. And so I got their GDP from 2.2 million at the time, which was kind of okay. It was the 18th largest economy in the world. I got them up to number 12. And I think the GDP at that point was about 7.2 million over the course of like the next 14 years. And then America went to war with me and they beat my ass. And then that was when I had to get to work. And so it was kind of lucky that I got acquitted there, because America was literally steamrolling me. Like at that point, they were marching through Texas right down to Mexico City. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to restart the game with the concept in mind that the U.S. is going to go to war with me. Guaranteed, and I need to get ready for that in the next 14 years by the time that happens. And so then I had to quit and get to work. But I did pretty well at trying to modernize Mexico even in its first 14 years. It had made it pretty far. But standard of living wasn't improved at all, which was a bit of a shame. Also, by the way, just to add this, usually, folks, I play the United States and I steamroll Mexico, and then I put them into a U.S. Customs Union in the game is usually what I do. And so this time around, I was like, what if I did something different and I played Mexico, and I played the flip side of the coin and tried to see if I could make that work? Because it's easy to do anything as America in the game, but it's really hard to do something as a minor power in the game like Mexico, so I wanted to give that a shot, and I learned my lesson pretty quick. But anyways, with that, let's get that live chat in honor of Cerberus 3. What do we got, Matthew?
All right. So the live chat question goes to I'm D. Stevenson, who said, even if the U.S. gets the Strait opened, doesn't the U.S. have to then stay there pretty much forever to keep it open?
In a sense, sort of, yes. At least initially, we might have to stay there for years and try and keep the Strait open or maintain it as an open strait. But that's really, sadly, our only recourse. It's either that or we surrender to the Iranians and we give them humongous concessions, and then they run the strait indefinitely and they can just shut it down whenever they want to. I'm not saying that staying there for years is a great idea, and then I'm 100% a big fan of that, but it's going to have to probably end up being necessary, unfortunately. And I have to say, folks, if you don't like what I'm saying, don't take it out on me. I'm just the messenger. I'm just telling y'all what we might have to end up doing at this point. If you're very unhappy about that, you might want to direct your frustrations at the U.S. government that got us in this situation, and now we're having to try and kind of figure a way out, even if it ends up keeping us there for years and it becomes really expensive. This is really our only recourse or path of action. But I hope that does address the live chat. Well, great one. I'm D. Stevenson, and a big thanks to Cerberus 3 once again for sponsoring our live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Cerberus3 once again, who puts in another $20 support. And thank you, Cerberus, for the second. He said, they say, sir, I'm out of ramen. The Air Force is out of ammunition, sir. But he passed out. They just fell asleep with the bottle, sir. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? You got to believe it. But Junior came in and said, they have low T.
I gotta be honest with you, there are so many problems affecting this country these days. Problems that could really rip this country apart. And so many people out there, they go, what is it, the Iranians? And I go, no, it's not Iran. And some people will go, what is it, Russia? And I go, no, it's not Russia. Russia's great people. What is it, China? No, we're growing our trade relations with China. The real threat that this country faces is low testosterone men in the army. That's right, everyone. You don't know how dangerous that is. Next thing you know, they go from developing man boobs to invading the government and throwing it over. How sad, how terrible, really. What a travesty. Many such cases.
It's a strange thing. Strange thing, low T. That's what they say, sir, low T. We got to have big T. That's big T in the name. It's the first letter, big T. That's what they call it, sir. It's in the name. They said it is so weak, sir, so wimpy. It's like this. Look at this guy. He's so wimpy, this guy. What's wrong with this guy? I mean, come on, man. Come along, Jack. Come on, man. I mean, what? Are you okay? I mean, shut up, man.
I gotta tell you that when we first came into the government, it was an absolute disaster. Every man in the military was nothing but an absolute sissy. They just had the lowest testosterone imaginable. So what we did is we put them on a diet of mountain oysters. That's bull testicles. And a whole bunch of other stuff to boost up that testosterone, because that's the real problem. It's not the fact that Iran has thousands of missiles. It's the fact that we don't have six-pack abs. Get those damn abs. But anyways, with that, I hope that he does our service for that super chat, Rose3. And a huge thanks to you for the support. I'm done with this channel to keep running and making this thing possible. And so with that, it is time for us to get on and into the next one.
Also, I think that microphone is crying out for help. Somebody said, this is obvious, said, your mic can't handle that voice. Honestly, it really can't. It's like struggling. Like, it's struggling right there. It sounds like the worm ate the microphone apart. But anyways, though, our next one goes to Ryan Guy SR, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you, Ryan Guy, as well. He said, I haven't been around much lately, and I feel bad, but y'all still killing it. And thank you, Ryan Guy. He said, take one from the chat in LLT LSA.
Hey, that's all right. That's all right. People sometimes can't be around a whole lot. Like there's a lot of old guards that haven't been around a whole lot lately because the business has really kicked up in the summer for them, and so they just can't be here a great deal. But I thank you so much for the kind words, and don't feel bad about it at all. We're happy to see you here when you can get here, and we'll always be here. We're here every single day. Every single day of the week, I tell you. And so, if you're busy, it's all right. We are too, but you can eventually come here and you can see this show. And so, a big thanks to you so much for the support. And we will make sure to take one from the chat, right, Guy SR. And long live the Lead Spring Army. And what do we got there, Matthew?
So the live chat question goes to David Tablet, who said, how are the Russians going to arm and transport troops if they have a mass mobilization?
Oh, that's a great question. So they're going to... The best way to describe what these troops are going to look like, they're going to be the modern equivalent of the Volkssturm, which, if y'all know late World War II history, that was the armed force that Germany created at the very end of World War II. That was the army of old men and young boys called the Volkssturm, which in German means something along the lines of People Storm. Or something along those lines. And basically all that they were was just a whole bunch of old men and boys that were given shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons and rifles, and then they were taken to the front. Or they were just kept in their locality to fight till the last man. At least that was the concept. In reality, they really never did. So that is generally what these Russian soldiers would look like if they're going to be formed up into new regiments or new divisions. It's just going to be a whole bunch of hardly motorized infantry. It's mostly probably just going to be foot infantry equipped with AKs and RPGs, and that's about all they're going to have. So as far as transporting them, they could do that by rail. That's probably the most efficient thing to do. But once they get somewhere, they're going to be highly immobile because they have no motorized means of moving around, and if they do, it's going to be in very low numbers. And as far as firepower, it's going to be very low because outside of their rifles and shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons, they're not going to have any built-in indirect fire support, most likely. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least from what I would know. And a big thanks to RyGuySR for sponsoring a live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Blind Man, who puts in a 20. And thank you, Blind Man, as well, for the $20 support. He said, hello, enforcers in LSA. And I'm still catching up from last week and sitting pretty at 73 hours last week. And would you say the reason this isn't a world war yet is because there's no common enemy like the other two? And sponsor a live chat on me.
I would say that at this point, it's just that there isn't, like, the whole world isn't at a full-blown conventional war yet. I mean, we're right on the edge at this point. I don't think anyone can even say otherwise, and say, oh, no, it's nowhere close. Like, if anybody knows exactly what's going on, it's very, very close to turning into a full-blown world war. But the thing that's stopping it from being a full-blown world war is that Europe, the whole of Europe, hasn't gone to war with Russia yet. And the whole of Europe hasn't gone to war with Iran. And generally, all of these conflicts, while all having common overarching allies and Axis powers involved into them, there is no united front across the whole globe where the allies are fighting the Axis at every corner, at every turn, unified as one fighting force. And we're not really seeing that yet. And so that's what I would say is the only thing that's dividing this at this point from becoming a full-blown world war is the allies fighting on a united front on every corner of the globe against the Axis powers. So a big thanks to your support and help with this channel to keep running, Blind Man. I hope that answers the question the best I can. And we will make sure to take a live chat in your honor. So Matthew, what do we got there?
And the live chat question this time is going to go to Bibiski, who said, do you happen to know if these are the drones that follow the terrain automatically with AI systems?
I think they are because I think all of them, generally outside of like final point targeting, are guided entirely by AI or some sort of a computer system that terrain follows and keeps them at a certain altitude. So if electronic warfare jams them and control of the drone is no longer possible, we understand that the drone then continues on whatever heading it's on with the autonomous system terrain following and just keeping it flying in a straight line until the operators reconnect to it and take it over. And apparently at some point that just doesn't happen and the drone just keeps flying in a straight line until it runs out of juice, and then it'll crash land somewhere like in Turkey or in Bulgaria like we saw today. So I hope that is addressed it the best I can, at least from what I know. And a big thanks to Blind Man once again for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Thomas Schott, and Thomas put in that 20, and we do appreciate that, Thomas. He said, just because this is the best news channel and great and funny and also corny. I mean, that's fair enough. Okay. He said, also, I'm a Patreon member and proud to support the channel, and thanks and keep up the good work.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the support to help us to keep up with this great work here. And also, thank you for supporting us on Patreon, the unsung realm of support that the Enforcer channel gets. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And thank you for enjoying that channel here. We always try our best to cover the news and be funny and also corny, sometimes unintentionally and intentionally. And we are always honored to know that many of people like you, Thomas, enjoy this channel and go over your way to support it so we can keep your favorite show on air and running indefinitely. How long will it keep running, folks? Well, it'll run eternally, because we've got to tell y'all something, folks. We're not real. I'm just kidding, by the way. We are real. We're immortal. You see, we're going to be around forever. Like in 200 years, we'll still be here doing the show. We were born in a tube. I'm just coming up with a whole bunch of crazy stuff to say, folks, to try and say the show will be around forever. But the truth is, folks, is that the show will be around for as long as we're alive, which I don't know how long that will be, but hopefully it'll be a while. So a big thanks to you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running, Thomas. And a big thanks to you for the kind words and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Blind Man once again. And thank you, Blind Man, for the second support of the night. We do appreciate that. He said, Attackham's production by Rheinmetall is delayed until 2027 as U.S. restocks a stockpile, allegedly. And the new GBU-75 JDAM is set for production for a $100 million contract, outperforming the AGM, the SLAM ER, AGM-154, and AGM-158 JASSM.
Dang, really? Oh, man. Well, I tell you something. That new GBU-75 be putting in that work. Be replacing a whole bunch of weapon systems. Let me go pull that one up here really quickly. The GBU-75. Yes, we'll look at this one. Well, what do we have here? The GBU-75. Well, here it is. There it is.
That looks fancy.
Man, that thing kind of rusty.
Well, that's it. That's a feature.
Man, that's one of them brand
Tactical
new
rust.
Tactical rust. Man, they probably have like a word for this. It's probably like oxidation coating layer or something like that. It's like probably but that bomb be rusty.
The oxidation anodization layer is a really innovative feature on the new weapon here. As you can see, it really adds a new layer of innovation and also excitement to the battlefield, they say.
Man, it's doing everything. It's incredible. But very neat to hear, Blind Man. I'll have to look into the GBU-75 a little bit more. It sounds like one of those new and impressive weapon systems that might be changing our modern battlefield. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again, Blind Man, for that support, and how about this channel to keep them running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Earth Lover, and thank you, Earth Lover, as well for that support. He said, I think we can all say he has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. And take one from the chat in LSA.
What do you mean by that? Matthew, what did they mean by that right there, huh?
I'm not totally sure, to be honest. I'm not sure who he is.
Who is he? Who is this guy?
Man, he is him.
Yeah, bro, I'm 100% Himalayan. Man.
Man, that's what the Secretary of War thinks he is. He said he is him. He said I am him. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna kind of put out a hot take here. I don't know how hot of a take this is gonna be. Man, the Secretary of Defense is literally just a grown-up version of that clavicular dude, honestly.
He's a real tough guy.
You have to make sure to looks max. It's like there's a lot more in the military than looks maxing, dude. It's like, how about win maxing? Can we win max? Like, I don't like lose maxing. I like the win max a little, you know. So it's like, can we stop focusing on the looks maxing and get to the win maxing?
Before you max, you got to min. Before you do the max. So if you can't even do the min, then I'm not sure the max is going to work out.
Man, honestly, man, truth. Man, truer words have never been spoken. But beyond that, though, I do have to say a big thanks to you for your support and helping this channel to keep running, Earth Lover. And with that, it is time for us to take one from the chat. So what do we got here?
And the one from the chat in honor of the super chat is going to go to Judy from the live chat. He said, does the U.S. have to pay all that money to Iran? And what would stop Iran from closing the area off if they ever want to?
Generally, yes, if we accept their terms of surrender, we have to give them a whole bunch of concessions, which at this point, the minimum is about $660 billion. Then we have to give them even more, and we don't know how much that more would be, what sum they would be happy with. So it could be up to $1 trillion, it could be over $1 trillion. I'm guessing somewhere in the $1 trillion ballpark range. And then what stops them from closing the area again? Literally nothing does, and that's what's stupid about the terms of surrender is, and also what makes it a terms of surrender, is that we give them basically $1 trillion in concessions out of the United States to Iran. That's about 3 times their annual GDP in concessions, which will rapidly allow Iran to militarize and also improve their economic lot, which will help them to be able to continue to grow a larger and more deadly armed force. And at the same time, they control the Strait of Hormuz as their territorial waters, which means that at any given moment, they can shut it down, because a country has a sovereign right to shut down their territorial waters whenever they would wish, arbitrarily, meaning that they don't have to check that by anyone. And so if Iran doesn't like anything that we're doing in the Middle East, or even in the world at large, they can just shut down the Strait of Hormuz immediately. And that's what makes the deal entirely stupid and unacceptable. And so I hope that does address it the best I can, Judy. Great question, by the way. And that's also why I would say that this deal is completely unacceptable, because it's working off of ridiculous terms. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one's going to go to Ken Shearbeck. And thank you very much, Ken, for the $10 support. He said, take one from the chat.
And of course we will, Ken. And a huge thanks to you for the support. And we will make sure to get one from the chat in your honor. So what do we got, Matthew?
So this one from the chat is going to go to King Dabble, who said, do you think the longer the war goes on, it's better for the United States, or the longer it goes on, it's better for Iran?
The longer it goes on, it's better for the Iranians. Generally, wars going on for a while is not beneficial for anybody, but in this particular instance with Iran, considering that it's a war of attrition, the longer the war goes on for them, the more economic damage they're able to inflict against us, which is generally the only real material kind of damage that they can actually inflict on the United States. So the longer the war goes on, it's putting the war more into their hands and making it a lot more beneficial for them than it is for us. And I think that's pretty clear, at least in the proof that we have at this point, that the war's been going on for 6 months, and domestic gas prices have never been higher here in the United States. They've reached record highs at this point. And also on top of that, The other thing that we can look at is that the United States of America is still stuck trying to get the Strait open, which is showing that it is having an economic impact, while Iran is making it incredibly clear they are willing to keep the Strait closed and keep the war going for a far longer period until all of their demands and more are met. So clearly, off of the negotiating positions, we can see that the United States is not benefiting from the war going on any longer, and the Iranians definitely are. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have 10 from Plexus Gaming, who said, unfortunately, this Middle East scenario seems to be taken out of an old movie called Countdown to Looking Glass.
Countdown to looking ass. What kind of movie is this?
Oh, man, I'll tell you, taking a good look out there.
Take a good look out there. Take a look. What do you see? What do you want me to see, baby? I want you to see something. Take a look through these binoculars. It's just a ram. No, it's not. It's a fat piece. But anyways,
It's Mustaba twerking.
Yo, Mustaba be throwing it back. Real like damn.
He's really doing that for sure. That's what I've heard.
Man, I heard he's been throwing it back so hard that it's killing him these days, man. It's tough. It's tough. It's a tough world out there. They say in Iran, it's either you throw back or you get thrown back. And I mean, my boy Mujtaba be out there, he be throwing it back. But anyways, outside of that though, what is this movie? Countdown to Looking Glass. Let's see, Countdown to Looking Glass. Let me see what this is. It's a 1984 movie that was made in Canada, that premiered in the United States on HBO. So we're getting down to the bottom of things here. A fictional confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union over the Strait of Hormuz. Oh my God, bro, they made movies about it 40 years ago. Man, when I say, folks, that this shit's been known about for 50 years, they literally made a movie on it. They even knew about it back then. Oh my God, you know, folks, I never even heard of this movie before. But the fact that I just heard about this now, I'm about to burst a blood vessel in my brain. It feels like I'm about to crash out. Like, this is like the end of Planet of the Apes when the dude's like riding the horse down the beach and he sees the Statue of Liberty and he realizes he's been on the earth the whole time. This is the equivalent. This is getting ridiculous. Honestly, you know what? It kind of seems like this might be the case. You know, you might be right. I mean, that's basically the movie plot. That's also what the ATP wrote about in 2021 that was declassified. You know, it's basically everything. It's basically quite literally everything that's going on right now in a short synopsis here. So a big thanks to your support and help this channel to keep them running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also a 10 from Peter Burrow, also known as Flash1. He puts in a 10, and thank you, good sir, as well, for that support. He said, hey there, Enforcers, and your thoughts on using any money that Iran wants to open the Strait. Should it be used on building up weapons and then do the job properly and get the Strait open? And LSA, and great show.
I would say we don't even need to spend the amount of money that we're willing to give the Iranians in concessions. It would probably cost less to reopen the Strait than it would to give them concessions. So I would say, in a sense, yes, I would say that it'd be better to just put the money towards war production and to reopen the Strait, because otherwise they're going to control it indefinitely, and that is a very bad strategic position for the United States of America. So humongous thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And long live the Leaf Springer. I mean, a big thanks to you for the kind words, Peter Burrow, and thank you for being around and watching after all these years. We thank you very much for being an old guard and a channel legend. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Cruder Dragon, who said, I guess the Marmot got a new job and might want to check on him. But I don't know if it's true, but I saw something earlier today that said scientists created an OnlyFans account for Marmots to fund research. I think it's called Only Marms.
It is Only Marms. Like, it is. It is. Let me go get the little fellow. We haven't shown him in a while. Oh, hello there. Hey!
Oh, hello there, Governor. He's out there selling pictures of fur. He said, it's time to make some cash. We're hitting on hard times, Governor. It's the time to cash in on what you got, you know. You got to do what you got to do, you know. But, you know, it's a tough life.
You know, they sit there and they call them working women. Well, I call myself a working mom. Take a look at that. Take a look at that fat tail and that big juicy man. Like, it's like, oh man, I would throw down some cash. I would throw down for that. Oh man, the hot dog stand just don't do it anymore for me. The glizzies, they just don't have the impact they used to. Wah. But man, it's the marmot. It's the marmot. The marmot has had a change in career. Poor marmot, I gotta say, falling on hard times. But beyond that though, the marmot do be looking quite thick. That marmot just be doing what it do, you know. Big respect to the marmot. We love Alan the marmot. Alan the marmot is an incredible and beautiful creature. Much like all of its cousins. Like see, like this yellow belly marmot. We saw one of these up on top of a mountain recently.
Happy one. Look at it, just smiling.
Man, it's chill like that. Or any of these other marmots, like this one that you can find in the Alps.
That one looks more like the one I saw.
Honestly, it kind of does. Let's see. How about? Oh, that one's very cute. I like that one.
It's like a squirrel.
Man, this one's apparently in Bhutan. So way way out there, man, in like the Indian subcontinent. And then we have this one that's in eastern Siberia. Sugabliya, bizarre nahoybliya. Like, oh look, it's a eastern Siberian monomotobliya. Let's see, where in the world were the ones in America? So these are the ones in America. Man, that one's like
That one kind of looks like it. It looks like the abominable snowman.
Man, this one be that hoary marmot.
That's
That one
I
might be
guess
the
it's,
one working on only marms.
free country, I guess. You can do what he wants.
Man. And then they got the Olympic marmot, which is endemic to the Olympic Peninsula in Washington.
It kind of does a lot of Yeti.
Man, this one sit there, man, and it'll go, excuse me, was this coffee made with soy milk? Like it's from the Olympic Peninsula.
Just two guys in a dream making overpriced burgers.
Oh, dude, I've seen so many of those memes. Man, it's like every single millennial burger shop ever made. And honestly, man, it's kind of like on point. Like they all kind of have like the same vibe.
So what two guys are just sitting around dreaming about making up expensive burgers? It's like, who's doing this?
Man, and they'll have like silly names for the burgers. They'll be like, oh my something. It'll be like a pun on beef, and it'll be like $20-something for like an average burger. Man, they make Five Guys look cheap. But also there's the Vancouver Island marmot, which is only on Vancouver Island in Canada.
That is an interesting one.
You know, I don't know what it is, but this one I don't know what it is, folks. But this one's eyes, it gives off a look like saying, you got snacks. It's like this thing looks hungry. Like it looks like it wants to eat. But let's see. You know what? I want to look at this Olympic marmot a little bit more. Why in the world does it have the lighter fur? Huh, so apparently it's like a summertime thing. Also, the Olympics are very beautiful out there in Washington. Really cool place. But I want to find... It's interesting. They're just basically like tan marmots. That's all that there kind of is to them.
Basically, yeah.
Man, they just kind of be chilling like that, though. All nice like. It's a really neat thing, honestly, though. But anyways, with that, folks, it is time for us to get on and into the next one.
And our next super chat goes to none other, and also, by the way, did they want a live check question, by the way? Let me double check that. I don't know if they did or not. I can grab one just to be safe, though. No, they didn't?
No, they didn't. They just wanted to talk about only marms.
Ah, I see. But thank you once again for that support right there. And hopefully we satisfied that marmot curiosity. But our next one here goes to Ripster435, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Ripster, as well for that support. He said, thank you, Matt, for what you do. And thank you, Ripster, for the kind words as well. I do appreciate it very much, by the way. And a huge shout out to you, Ripster, for helping to keep the channel going, too. And we do appreciate that very, very much, as always. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, I thank you for thinking, Matt. We appreciate Matt. He does a lot of work here. He does a lot of work. And we thank you for your support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so, Matthew, what do you have to say about that?
I don't know if you addressed that properly or not.
Well, you're going to have to put that in with HR.
Man, that's your cue to start. That's his cue. That's his cue. That's why we don't put him there for any reasons. We put him there in the cabinet because he's supposed to praise. That's what they do. They say, when I say, what's your analysis? It means praise me. That's what that means, sir. I said, you're not here for your expertise. Trust me. The guy's not in that Secretary of Health position for expertise. He doesn't even have an MD. He's there for one reason and one reason only, and he's doing it well. He said, sir, praise.
Man. Every single government official that gets the job, can you do the job well? No. Can you absolutely brown-nosed me until the end of time. Absolutely. You got the job. Like, it's like, you got the job going out there.
When he came into the office, he was on his knees the whole time. I said, please, we don't need this. We don't need this. And he said, sir, I have to, sir. And I said, well, if you have to, it's okay.
Oh, man. He sat there and he got down on his knees, and I said, "Oh, gee." Anyways,
What?
no, nothing at all, nothing at all. It was a botched joke, really, truly. But man, you got to remember, everybody, if you want to run a government office these days, you don't have to do anything well at all. And I think this is truly an inspiration for the youth of this country, kids. You don't need a good GPA in school to make it in this country. You don't need anything to make it in this country these days. All you need is to be a member of the Palm Beach Breakfast Club and also be able to brown nose until the sun goes down. And if you can do those two things, then you, my friend, can be a secretary of a government agency. Think about it. The options, the potential, it's limitless. You can do anything at that point. As long as you say every day a big thanks to the man in charge, and just do nothing else. That's literally your whole job. So with that in mind, it is time for us folks to move on and into the next one.
Next one goes to Destroyer X6614, who put in a 10. And thank you, Destroyer, for that 10. They said, would medevac drones like the Avalus Grill, contracted specifically to the German Bundeswehr only, be useful in Ukraine and LSA?
Honestly, they would be. I think the Ukrainians have tried to work on drones like these, and to show y'all it, folks, it kind of looks a little silly, but this is the drone. Man, a big bulbous. Like, it's like a big Baba Yaga, basically. But yeah, I mean, these things could be useful. Also, to give you all an idea of the scale of this drone, there's two guys actually loading up a stretcher into it. So these things are not small by any means. These things are almost like small helicopters. But outside of that, I would say, yes, they would be beneficial in Ukraine. I think the British had large British drone. Let me see if I can find the huge British drone that they had. Oh, no, it's not these. You remember the one I'm talking about, man? They did like the anti-tank recoilless rifle test with it. I forgot the name of the thing.
Yeah, I don't remember that one off the bat, but I have an image of it in my head, but I don't remember the name of it.
Let's see. Large British anti-tank drone. Let me see if I can pull that up. Oh, dang. They don't have a single picture of this thing anywhere on the internet anymore? What's up with that? I mean, I remember they tested that thing. It's like the British Raven drone. Let me pull it up. British Raven drone. Nope, it's not that. Huh. That's weird. It's like a Mandela effect. I remember the specific type of drone existing with a specific shape and everything, and there's no pictures of it anywhere online. But oh, I forgot that's from our classified briefing. I'm just kidding. I've been outside of that though, folks. I don't know what in the hell happened to that one, but there was another drone kind of like it, where the British said it would have a similar role in the future, and it could also be multi-role and do anti-tank, reconnaissance, medevac, and everything else. Those would be helpful, but I think the Ukrainians have gotten around that by coming up with a more efficient system, which is just the UGV, which just rolls up there, grabs the guy or the stretcher, and then rolls them back to wherever they can be collected. So a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep running, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one goes to Earth Lover, who puts in a 10, and said, do you think that Iran could eventually wear the U.S. down enough to force America into its own modern-day Treaty of Versailles?
I don't think we'll ever get to the level of a Treaty of Versailles, because the Treaty of Versailles was absolute, because the German, I think we also would probably need to change our wordage, because it's not an unconditional surrender that we're going to have to Iran, but it is a surrender. But an unconditional surrender is where the victorious party, to put it that way instead of just the victor, is where the victorious party gets to quite literally do anything and everything they want to, including changing your government. And I don't think in any situation are the Iranians ever going to get such a victory that they'll get a Treaty of Versailles-like effect over us, and they'll be able to occupy the United States, change our government completely from the inside out, and basically create a puppet state out of the United States. I don't think that'll ever happen, but we will see a surrender that will be pretty nasty. And to come up with a historical example of a nasty sort of an outcome and a surrender would probably be the British at the end of the American Revolutionary War would probably be the best one, because they spent a humongous amount of money fighting the 7 Years' War when we were the colonies, defending us from the French, and then after that war they tried to raise taxes on us without our consent, which then led to the Revolutionary War, which they then spent a whole bunch of more money on, and then the French and the Spanish got involved as well and beat the British up pretty badly, and then at the end of it all, Britain had to not only give away the 13 colonies, but they also had to give away the Northwest Territories and all of their holdings that they had up to the Mississippi River. So not only did they have a tremendous amount of cost, but they also lost a tremendous amount of potential in having to hand away all of that territory in the Treaty of Paris of 1783. So in my opinion, I think it would be something akin to that, like a major surrender, but it would never be an unconditional surrender, a Treaty of Versailles-like sort of a condition. But a big thanks to you for the support, and how about this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have another 10 here from Ken Shearbeck, and thank you, Ken, as well. He said, take another one from the chat, and good night.
Oh, of course we will, Ken. Big thanks to you for the support, and we will make sure to take another one from the live chat, and a big good night to you. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to AFK Plan. He said, do you know if Turkey has any Patriot missiles? And if yes, do you think that they will be willing to give some of those to Ukraine?
I think they do. Let me pull this up. Turkish Army equipment.
I'm not sure if really anybody wants to give away their Patriots at this point, because the fact that everybody's running so low on them, it's like, will they ever get replenishments if they sell them to Ukraine? That's probably the fear.
Man, honestly, it probably is the fear. Let me see here. Let's see here. Trying to find their air defenses so that we can get the equipment list. Do we have the ship's manifest, sir? Yes, heavens, we are trying to find the ship's manifest, sir. It's probably somewhere in here, somewhere, possibly. Damn, where is it? How many systems? Oh my god. Okay, we finally found it. So, we're looking for the MIM 104s. Surface-to-air missile systems. They have the Sipper Block 1. They have the HISAR 0, the HISAR A+, that one got good grades in school. The Autogan PMSS and the Zipkin PMADs, and also the Veron. It doesn't look like they actually have a Patriot, which is kind of odd. Yeah, actually, they do not have one. So apparently they wouldn't be willing to give them. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I'm stupid. I should have known. They got the S-300s, the S-400s from Russia, and that's why they didn't get Patriots, is because they had the S-400s and the S-300s from the Russians. So yes, they don't actually have Patriots to give away, because I don't know what took me a while, and I just saw, this is obvious, duh. Big thanks to you, by the way, for mentioning it. They had S-400s, they also had some S-300s, and also Taoist Auditor mentioned that as well. So, stupid me, completely forgot, they didn't have Patriots, they actually had S-300s, and S-400s, which were the more advanced version of the system. And I think they gave those back to the Russians at this point. So, sadly, they don't have any Patriot systems or Patriots to give. And even if they did, I don't really think they want to give them either, because that's kind of the running trend internationally these days, is that nobody wants to give it up because they're scared that they might have to use them next. But with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, and a big thanks to you for support and sponsoring our live chat, Ken. And I hope that you're sleeping well right now. And with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from none other than Game Theory. And thank you, Game Theory, as well, for that generous support. He said, why do you think this war is the prelude to World War III? And is it similar to the wars before World War II?
Yes, it is. It is quite similar, Game Theory. And that's why I think it is a prelude. To lay out the scene, to lay out the similarities, we have a country in Europe. Back then it was Nazi Germany, now it's the Russian Federation. But we have a country in Europe that has a concept of superiority, enemies within, and a territorial ambition that must be achieved for the greater good and the superiority of their people. In the 1930s, it was the superiority of the Germans, or whatever the hell the Nazis called them, and they had to take the Lebensraum to the east and be able to claim all that land, to be able to take Germany into the economic model of autarky, to be able to achieve the true superiority of the German state. In the modern day, the Russian people, according to Putin, are those superior people, and they have to expand west, quite literally over the very same ground the Germans wanted, to be able to reform the Russian Empire and to be able to rekindle or reclaim the lost greatness that the Russian people, who are the greatest people on the planet, which is what the Russians claim, have lost because of the humiliation they defeated from the West, well, the humiliation defeat and the collapse of the Soviet Union that was faced at the hands of the West. So they need to get vengeance on those boogeymen, and they also need to reclaim that land for their national glory. So in that sense, in Europe, the basic ingredients for the recipe of a major conflict on the face of Europe is there right now. And we could say that the war in Ukraine is very similar to the German buildup to the invasion of Operation Barbarossa. The Russians have tried to invade, much like Germany did, Poland. And unlike Poland in World War II, the Poland of today, which is Ukraine, is holding on exceptionally well. But that might lead them to really, honestly, you know what? The better way to look at it, folks, would be that Ukraine is kind of like the modern day Britain. Because Germany was able to achieve a lot of its objectives before the Battle of Britain quite easily, the Battle of Poland and the Battle of France. But when it came to Britain, Britain held out exceptionally long, and that's what made the Germans desperate, and that's also what led them to conduct Operation Barbarossa, which was the war against the Soviet Union. And so Ukraine, which is the modern-day Britain, has held out exceptionally long, and because of this, the Russian economy is beginning to dwindle. They didn't expect the war to go on this long. The losses are mounting, so they have to take desperate actions to be able to try and mend the situation, or to at least try and improve the current one they're in, which could include a war with NATO, which would be the Germans' invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941 as a parallel. The Middle East is kind of a side theater to Europe, both in the modern day and today. The Iranians are, well, what would we call it? The minor player, kind of like the Italians were in North Africa at that time, which is kind of close to the Middle East, and the Russians could use that as a proxy force or a jumping point to be able to try and see that the main oil resources that we have in the Middle East could be deprived. Meanwhile, in East Asia, we have China, which is a lot like Imperial Japan was at the time, looking at some sort of a greater national ambition for their nation and their people, and they are quite willing to really go to any lengths, including a war with us and a preemptive strike in our destruction and also Taiwan's destruction, to be able to see that they can reunify Taiwan with the Chinese mainland, which is very similar to the sort of mindset that Japan had in a lot of ways, that led to the attack on Pearl Harbor in the Philippines. So I would say, generally, to break it down front by front, that really is the reason why I'm saying it's a lot like the lead up to the Second World War at this point. We're going into what could be the lead up to a Third World War, because it's eerily similar in every way. The only thing that's changed is the nations that are involved in conducting the plays, because it's not like Germany today is doing what Germany did in World War II to lead up to it. Now it's Russia. So the nations have changed, but a lot of their mindset ideologically and a lot of their actions leading up to their executions on things like the war in Ukraine and the war in the Middle East and whatnot, they're very similar in so many different ways, that make it seem like we're quite literally at the cusp of a Third World War. That's also why, like folks, interestingly enough, another thing to explain is that my historical examples have gone from everything. Like, y'all have known for years, folks, I would pull out historical examples out of the woodworks from 400 years ago to explain some stuff that was happening today. Nowadays, the only sort of examples I can really use is World War II, because everything's become so similar to the very last months or years leading up to World War II that it is quite literally a guidebook at this point of what is happening and what could be coming next as far as the overarching story goes. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and a humongous thanks to you for that incredible support and help this channel to keep it running, Game Theory, and I hope that answered the question incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Ripster435 once again, and thank you, good sir, for the second super chat. He said, lunch for the both of you.
Lunch for the both of us? Generous, Ripster, generous. You know how much lunches are these days? They ain't cheap. And that's quite a good bit of support, and that will help us to have 2 lunches. I think
that's 4 Costco chickens right there. That's four rotisseries.
Now, a Costco chicken, heavens, that's days of food, I say. But a humongous thanks to you incredibly for that support, Ripster, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it was not for folks like you, this just wouldn't be possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running, and we wouldn't be able to keep this thing a reality. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from an Earth Lover who said, do you think Iran will successfully build and possess a nuclear weapon before 2030? And they'd put the odds about 50%.
I would say I'd probably be around those odds as well because with how the U.S. has been handling everything, I would have to say I think that there's a chance, unfortunately, and if they do get one, it's going to be a disaster. Not in any direct way. It's not like they're going to nuke us immediately, but it's going to be a disaster for our foreign policy. But a huge thanks to you for the support and help with this channel to keep running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Enforcer Daniel's mom. And hello to Enforcer Daniel's
Oh,
mom, by
hello
the way, who
there.
put in that 5. They said the U.S. cannot fund Iran's terrorism. That's a nuclear program type on money. And that scares me for my kids. And Enforcer Daniel says LSA for life. And also a big shout out to Enforcer Daniel, by the way. It's cool to know he's still watching the show right there. And I would have to agree with you. It is quite horrifying to think if Iran actually is able to develop a nuke at some point, they actually have one that's fieldable. At that point, the entire region and possibly the entirety of Europe and possibly even the world might be screwed at that point because then they have the way to basically have unlimited leverage indefinitely into the future. That's really truly a horrifying concept. But Enforcer, what say you?
It is quite horrifying, really. And so big thanks to you for support enforcing Daniel's mom. And I would agree we should not be giving them any concessions whatsoever. And we should continue on the war to see that they are not able to have any leverage over us in the future. And that we can also assure that they will not obtain a nuclear weapon. Because while they'll never use the nuclear weapon against us, because the nuclear weapons are generally for a deterrence factor more so than actual use, it is going to tie our hands so badly in the Middle East we won't be able to do anything there anymore, and the Iranians will, by default, generally control the Middle East at that point because they'll control the flow of oil. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for that support and help with this channel to keep it running. And a big shout out to Enforcer Daniel once again, and long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have yet another super chat from Ripster435. And thank you once again, good sir. He puts in another 20 and said, BB Guy Domore Nugents, LOL.
What does it mean?
I don't know.
What does it mean? The numbers, Mason. What do they mean? I'm not telling you. Just like beyond that, man. I thank you greatly for the support. Sadly, I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means. Buy more nuggets. You know what? Honestly, I can go behind that. Chicken nuggets are great. I mean, they're made out of like a paste, but I don't really care about that. They taste pretty good.
The only chicken nuggets I ever eat anymore are those Chick-fil-A nuggets. That's the only ones. I just can't do those other ones, like those sketchy ones. I just can't do them.
They're made out of paste. They're made out of a paste. Honestly, they taste fine. So, it's like, I don't really care all too much. Honestly, folks, I think if we looked at the how the sausage was made on everything, not really a lot of people want to eat much of anything. So I say,
man, what's that song? What's that song? It's like shoulders, knees, and elbows, or something like that. It's like the
shoulders,
ligaments.
knees, and toes.
Yeah, I feel like that's what some of these meats these days are made out of.
Man, I tell you, man, those industrial. I will say this, like, if we look at how the sausage is made, most of us probably wouldn't be eating anything. But I will also add that the way that industrialized, I guess you could say, chicken farming works and other things like that, it's absolutely brutal. I don't know if y'all have looked into that, folks, but it is absolutely grotesque. What goes on in most of those large scale like chicken farms? Have you seen it before, Matthew?
I think I probably have, yeah.
Man, I mean, it's brutal in some of those places. Like when all of the chickens are born, they have they literally dump them out of boxes by the hundreds, and they separate the male and female. And if it's a female chicken, then they take it and put it aside to go put it into a special, it's like a special one of those row house buildings for them to grow up in, and they'll, of course, get souped up with the hormones and whatnot. But if they're a male chick, they just literally take it and toss it into a grinder, like right there on the spot, and they just do them in the hundreds every batch, thousands even, in every batch. It's like, that is like, it's like, couldn't we find a better way to do this? It's like, this is absolutely abhorrent, like, watching what could be described as absolutely abject conditions, because I know they're going to be eaten, folks, but at the same time, it's like, do we have to run the entire process like that? It's like, it's a pretty nasty one, really. But anyways, with that, we're on the next one.
also have a $5 super chat from Mark Dixon. And thank you very much, Mark, as well, for that $5 support. And while we're at it, a big shout out to Troy, who also put in a 5. And we appreciate the both of you very much for supporting the channel. And we also have another 20 from none other than Ripster yet again, who threw in another $20 support. And thank you very much, Ripster. I think that's the third or fourth one of the night. And we do appreciate that very, very much. He said, buy more nuggets. Sorry.
Oh, it's quite all right. I think we got it the first time. But I do thank you greatly for the support, and we will try and buy some more nuggets. I think actually after talking about that chicken farming stuff, I think I'll have to have the Chick-fil-A nugget, because while it probably is created the same way as far as the chicken farms go, at least the chicken isn't from a paste, is it?
No, they do it right. They do it right.
Let me pull this up here really quickly. Chick-fil-A chicken farm. Chick-fil-A. I'm not gonna show it on screen. Chicken farm. Let's see. Oh, so the oh well, oh no, they apparently
Don't make any claims like that about that company, by the way.
well, apparently they allegedly source all of it out to other companies, so they don't do it. Like it's another company that does it. But interesting. There are some allegations by animal rights groups, but I'll just leave it at that. So basically, I'd assume because it wouldn't really make a lot of sense for an industrial chicken sort of a restaurant to not get it from an industrial means. It looks like everyone gets it kind of from the same means, but I would say that the Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets do qualitatively taste better because it's not the paste stuff that the other nuggets are made out of. But still, a big thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Hednar, and thank you as well, good sir. He said, how do you stop a Russian tank? You have to deal with the soldiers pushing it.
That's a pretty good one. But I gotta say, a huge thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Nisi, and they said, I hate to see the USA be hurt so badly, but glad for your reporting of it. No sugarcoating, and thank you both so much, and keep up the good reporting.
I gotta thank you greatly for the support, and thank you so much for enjoying the reporting. And I'd have to say, we don't sugarcoat it because we want people to know the actual reality of what's going on, so that way we can know what needs to change to improve the situation, rather than just, putting our heads in the sand and saying, everything has turned out great, when it's definitely not. But a huge thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Zach Wilkins, who said, hey, Enforcers, and are either of you guys invested in the stock market? And also, thank you for keeping us informed, and I've been a subscriber for a year or two now. And also, thank you for being subscribed for so long, Zach. And I'm personally invested in the stock market. I have like a retirement account. So I don't do if you're asking about like day trading or something like that, I don't do anything quite like that. I learned my lesson and got burned on that a long, long time ago, way before the channel. So I just do like long-term retirement stuff right there with basic, common index funds and stuff like that. Enforcer, what say you?
I don't get involved in it at all. With how volatile it is these days, too, I just feel like it's a good time to avoid it because there isn't really a great deal of stability in most of it, at least from what I've seen. But a huge thanks to you for support, and thank you for the kind words, Zach Wilkins, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
All right, and also, real quick, by the way, let's see something here. I'm trying to check a fact real quick. Let's see here. Also, Diane Merriam, I don't think you're banned out of the chat, by the way. I see your chat right there in the live chat right now. So I think maybe it was just a misunderstanding or something like that. I see your message. But moving into our next one here, this one goes to Ripster435 yet again, who this time throws in a $50 support. And thank you extremely much, Ripster, for I believe the 5th super chat of the night. Also extremely generous of you. He said, thank you for what you both do.
And I gotta thank you greatly for what you've been doing tonight, supporting this channel. We thank you greatly for it, because you're helping us to stay on there and keep doing what we're doing. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. Thank you for the kind words and that incredible support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Phantom Boombox, who said, here's some dough for you guys, and I've been playing the new Gears of War beta, and it's been a blast so far. And LSA and shout out from Pleasant Grove, Utah. Pleasant Grove. I know about Pleasant Grove. I've been down there a few times, just a couple, for different business reasons. But yeah, I know where that is. That's a nice little place, a very new place down there, I will say. Very nice. It's very commercial. But Enforcer, what say you?
Where is Pleasant Grove?
It's down there a little bit, I think it's below Orem.
Oh. Pleasant Grove. Where is that? I don't see it around here. Pleasant Grove. Is it up in here somewhere? Maybe? Oh, there it is.
Just type it in.
Pleasant Grove! Hey! we can't type it in. It's against the rules. But hey, Pleasant Grove. Wow. Man, look at that. Pleasant Grove. We found it. It is a grove and it's pleasant. Man, what an incredible place. It is in a nice spot, though. It's right next to the mountains here. Right under Mount Timpanogos, which is a really cool mountain. Have you ever seen the backside of Mount Timpanogos, Matthew? Like the side we don't see?
I try not to stare.
Oh, I mean, honestly, that is quite respectable. But have you ever seen the backside of it?
Not recently. No, I haven't looked.
Look and behold. Wow. It's like a whole other world back here. Let me actually get us down lower into the Primrose Cirque. I think this is where I'm trying to get us, but let me see. Is this the spot? This is the spot. Man, look at that. That's crazy right there. How the rocks are formed back here and stuff. Looks like a fake world.
It kind of does, actually. It's like a little like oasis.
And it's really neat, honestly. But a big shout out to you and a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running all the way from Pleasant Grove, Utah. And that is so neat. I've actually driven by Pleasant Grove a couple of times. And I gotta say, a really neat spot down there. I've heard some things about the American Fork city area pertaining to Legos. So well, you're very close to that actually. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
And also moving into our next one, this one goes to none other than Game Theory, who put in a 5. And thank you, Game Theory, once again for that support. And they said they're saying that 401k is to invest in private credit. Watch out. Now, I don't know how the 401k, I don't know how that really works. And like, I'm not that well versed in like the whole investing world and stuff like that, but I'm generally a fan of keeping investing stable as possible, for the most part, I would say. So if it's destabilizing, I would not be in favor of it. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, a tremendous thanks to you for the support. And generally, I just don't get involved in that stuff myself, unfortunately.
Are you scared of it?
Kind of, yeah, because I don't want to lose all my money.
Well, you know, if it's long term, like a retirement account, you're not going to lose your money in one go if you're planning on keeping it in there for like 30 years or something like that. Worst case scenario is your return's not as big as you thought it was.
I suppose, but you know,
That's it. At least that's my layman's opinion, by the way. That's not financial advice. That's just my layman's opinion. I could turn out to be completely wrong and lose it all.
Sure as hell sounded like you were giving me financial advice, buddy. You lawyer up. I was just playing with you. But beyond that, though, I just don't. I don't want to touch this stuff, especially with how it is right now. You never know. You know, it's like you could put everything in. The stock market tanks into like the Great Depression era, and then by the time 30 years later comes around, it's literally just returned to the same value it was at right now. And it's like, I don't really want to take that risk. I'll rather wait for the crash, put it all in, then wait for it to get back to where it was today. But then it would be a return of a sort. So,
you're one of those time in the market type people. I've heard about y'all.
I'm not really timing the market. It's more so that the market's timing me. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel keep running. I hope that was both of our 2 cents on that. 2 cents. You see that 1 penny, 2 penny, 2 cents. And with that, we're on the next one.
And next up, we have a $100 support from none other than Ripster435 yet again. You just put in that massive, one of the biggest super chats of the night, by the way, and a huge shout out to you, Ripster. That is the 6th super chat of the night. Extremely generous, and we do appreciate you very, very much. He said, thank you, Matt and Andrew.
Hey, and a big thanks to you, Ripster, for that unbelievable support. Crazy, honestly. Insane support. And we thank you massively for it because it helps us to be able to stay crazy and insane here on air. And so a humongous thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, and a humongous thanks to you for helping this channel to keep on running and helping to make this thing possible. So tremendous, humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $10 support from Cerebros3 once again. He said, I only eat meat from local farms or trading with neighbors growing animals, and that allows me to see conditions and avoid mass contamination. And please explain to the chat the difference between cage-free and pasture-raised.
You know, Cerberus, I actually don't know the exact difference between cage-free and pasture-raised. I think my understanding has always been that cage-free means they're just in that big-ass, like, row house thing that they industrially, like, farm the chickens in. And then pasture grazing means they're actually out or pasture raised means they're actually out in some open field, generally being raised in a fairly sort of a normal way, is the way I could describe it in a sense. Although sometimes that also can get into some questionable grounds as well, because they might overcrowd the fields and stuff like that. But beyond that, I think that's the difference, and that's a pretty smart move, Cerberus, honestly, to go around and locally source it, because I have to say I eat quite a lot of meat and I don't do that myself, but whenever I see the sort of abject conditions that industrial chicken farming and cattle rearing is done, it really makes me think, damn, it's like, is it really worth it to have all of that going on? It doesn't happen at every farm. A lot of them, like the local ones, actually do it ethically, like the small scale ones, but the industrial size companies, they, much like any others, are looking to maximize the profits for the shareholders. So you get these animals in what could be described as absolutely brutal and cruel conditions, and just soup them up on growth hormones as quickly as possible and send them off to the slaughter. And it's like, and like, I get it. Like, a lot of people are going to say, well, they're going to be sent to the slaughter anyways. And yeah, that's true. That's true. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, should the animals be subjected to such brutal conditions their whole life, from when they're born to when they're slaughtered, just so that way we can turn around, have like the maximum turnaround possible? And I don't really know if that is a good way of running things, really. But anyway, like just from a moral standpoint. But anyways, a humongous thanks to you for the support, and help this channel to keep it running. I hope that is addressed that well, and I hope I got the definition of cage-free and pasture raised correct as well. But with that, we're on the next one.
That's a 5 from Lou Niche, who said, Gentlemen,
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest. Have a look at the headlock here. Sir, you're not supposed to say anything. You're under arrest. I'm under what? Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest. Have a look at the headlock here. Get your hands off my weenus! This is the bloke who touched me on the weenus, people. Oh, but beyond that, though, huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
we also have a 2 from Garrett Helms. He said, Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraine, Rom Slava. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Brian Underhill and Plazoth, and they said LOT, LSA.
And long live the Lee Spring Army, long live the Lee Spring Army indeed. And a big thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I saw, Matthew, a question in the chat I cannot avoid. Zach Martin asked, would you trust lab-grown meat? Well, would you?
Yeah. Oh, who, me?
Yeah, you.
I don't know. I prefer. Well, let me carefully phrase that, because that gets. Let's see here. How do we say this where it doesn't sound sus? Let's see here. I prefer the meat to be. There's no way to say that. No, you're setting me up.
No, I'm not setting you up. I'm literally just curious.
How do you like your meat?
I like mine naturally raised and slaughtered.
Oh, okay.
What, do you not?
I don't know. Like, I think I've gone vegetarian.
Oh, it just looks so weird. I'm looking at pictures of the stuff. It just doesn't look right. Like, like when you look at a piece of meat, folks, you're looking at the muscle tissue of an animal that's been slaughtered and it's been cut up in certain ways, and you can always tell that it is a legitimate muscle. Like when you look at them, like a steak and whatnot, because you can see, I forgot what the names of the little pieces of a muscle are. They're like little strings, and they come together in the thousands to make up a muscle. But you can see that, and you know that that's real meat. When I'm looking at this lab-grown meat stuff, it has absolutely none of that. Like, it's just literally a blob of stuff. Like, it doesn't really even look like it has a muscle structure to it. And that, to me, is absolutely bizarre. Like, let me see if I can show it to you. Here it is in the Petri dish. And that, something about this just doesn't look right.
Yeah, I don't like the look of that.
Yeah, I mean, like, and like, a lot of people are gonna be like, well, duh, it's hamburger meat. But look at it. It doesn't even look like hamburger meat. It's literally just a piece of meat that's been grown into the shape of a hamburger, but it's not actual hamburger meat, and it clearly has never had any sort of muscle structure. It looks uncanny. Something looks wrong about this thing. That's why I don't like them. But yeah, as far as I personally go, I wouldn't eat lab-grown meat. I kind of think that's where I cross the line. So I would have to eat like a actual animal that's been slaughtered. But at the same time, I don't want the animals to be living in abject suffering either. It has to be a way to be able to achieve both without it being exorbitantly expensive, at least from what I would think. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Ripster435, who put in a $5 support this time. And thank you very much, good sir, as well for the 5 once again. We do appreciate that. And we also have a 2 from Purple Dinosaur, who said, White House will put boots on the ground and blame another people.
I heard that someone got blamed for the bad economy that's around right now. Some guy who was the president from like 2008 to 2015. I was like, oh, it's kind of been a long time, man. You know, it's like maybe 10 years, a little late. That would have worked in 2015, but maybe not now. But a big thanks to you for your support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
And we also have a 2 from Insensum, who said, get into Horus Hearsay and enjoy the poverty. Say what?
Oh, the Horus Heresy. You know, I tried to get into Warhammer 40k, and I hate to say it, it's just not really my thing. Like, I tried really hard, and I read about it because I had friends that were into it, and they wanted me to be into it. I don't know. It's just not really my thing, you know? Like, it's not my jam. It's not, I don't know. Like, it's just not something I'm particularly tremendously interested in. I think it's my general aversion to fantasy that keeps me away. But a huge thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Water, Barley, Hops, Yeast, who said, Princess Bride, boo boo to sponsors, LSA.
And a big thanks to you for the support, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 2 from Luniche, who said, is the Skinwalker Ranch show popular in Utah?
I haven't really heard a lot about it. I remember when we moved out here, we're like, oh yeah, that's out there near Duquesne or something. And I never really heard about it or seen about it since. So I think it's, at least for me, it's not a particular big thing, but I haven't really asked around on that one, though, to know. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And with that, it is time, folks, for us to get to the Morse code decoders and some live chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
So the Morse code decoders tonight were Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, Heroic Fluffiness, Kush, Commentary, Sire, and Brian. And they said the Morse code said Putin is probably losing his mind over how it just keeps getting worse, LOL, and LLT, LSA.
And that's the sound of money. Y'all got that done on the nail. That's the Morse code tonight. I gotta congratulate y'all greatly for getting that correct time and time again. Truly an amazing and wonderful and fantastic thing to know. The Lee Spring Army Signal Corps has never missed a Morse code message. And so, with that, it is time for us to get on into the live chats. And it looks like, folks, we have exactly 5 of them left in the spreadsheet. And we definitely have enough time to get to all 5 of them. So, what do we got here?
All right, so this one goes to Yuki Mom, who said, have you heard about all the drought on the Danube in Serbia? I read that the water's so low that sunken World War II ships can be seen on the surface.
Yeah, it's been very bad, actually. It's been so bad that Romania is having to consider about shutting down their only nuclear reactor, which is on the Danube, because the water levels are getting so low that it may not be able to function properly. So it has been pretty bad. Let me see if I can show this, like, drought on the Danube. And let me see if I can show you all the water level at this point on some areas of the Danube. Yes. So here is what the Danube looks like right now.
Oh.
Pretty much non-existent, basically. Let me see if I can show you all another picture here from somewhere. Here's one of the ships that had sunk in World War II that's now resurfaced because the river's level has gotten so low. And then here it is again a couple of days later after the river had dropped a little bit more. But it is pretty bad out there right now. I think the Rhine River is also having a problem as well. But the Rhine isn't as bad off as the Danube. The Danube is the worst off. And I think the Rhine's also seeing very low water levels as well. You know, folks, that River Rhine, oddly enough, there isn't any rhinestones in it, sadly. Thought they were named after that, but apparently not. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
This one goes to Epic Trains Canada. He said, what is the state of Russia's old Soviet stockpiles of land vehicles, and are they completely depleted at this point?
They're practically depleted. Like, there's a little bit left, and you could try and, like, squeeze the blood out of a turnip, to put it that way, but there's not enough left to be able to keep an army running for that long. They pretty much exhausted all of it, and that's why we keep seeing that civilian vehicles are getting used far more. We hardly ever see anything else anymore, is because all of the other stockpiles have largely been completely depleted. So I hope that does address that the best that I can, and a huge thanks to you for that interesting question there. And we also have a 5 from Taoist Auditor, who said, are you looking forward to the new Grand Tour? Yes, new guys, but give it time to get legs. Me personally, I never.
I'm not looking forward to it. I want, I understand like they have to get new people occasionally, but you don't want to just shoehorn people in. Like for example, let's just say like next year we said okay we're stepping down from the Enforcer channel. We're going to let two other random people take over. It's like the odds of the channel doing good after that are probably not very high because the channel we're the ones who were on the channel first. So it's like if you just hand it over to two random folks after that, it's like it's not going to have the same momentum to it. It's just not. So I don't know if that shoehorning three new people in is going to work right. Also, that's a strange lineup of three people they got coming in too. That's an odd lineup.
Yeah, it's not really like they have any notoriety in the car world outside of anything, at least from what I know. It's just kind of like, let's take these guys and throw them in. And it's like, that doesn't really work because it's like, the Top Gear crew, they had some notoriety in the car world before they created Top Gear. Like Jeremy Clarkson was a car reviewer, Richard Hammond was, and I think James May was as well. And then the BBC said, what if we took all three of y'all and we made a car show? Like where all three of y'all were on it instead of y'all doing your separate things. And then that's how Top Gear was made. And from what I know, if I'm not mistaken, Matthew, that is not the case with this one.
This one here is just three guys. I think two of them might have been car YouTubers before this. They were like on a pretty huge car channel. They had like I think well over 1 million subscribers. And there's also one kid they added in the mix. I'm not sure where he came from. But he's not even in the same age bracket as the other two. He's just like some young kid they jumped in there. He might be good. He might turn out to be pretty solid. I just don't know much about him.
I mean, it might be good. But I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it has like the same inception as the original Top Gear, and the Grand Tour is kind of just trying to emulate in a way Top Gear to a sense, although it is a good bit different. I don't know. Like me personally, I don't really watch car shows a whole lot myself. I generally watch like war documentaries or history videos or listen to like train documentaries about railroads and stuff. In my free time, so it never really was a show that would be on my itinerary in the first place. But a huge thanks to your support and help with this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, we actually have two more super chats to get to. So what do
Yes.
we got?
So this one goes to Global Warmer. He puts in a 10 and said, here's 100 TWD. And this is my fifth time here in my life, and I'm loving it. And also, thank you, by the way. They said it may not be worth much in the States, but out here I can get some of the best food ever. And I miss my lengua burritos, though. And thank you, LSA.
What is NT stand for? NT currency. Where is this? Oh, Taiwan. Well, what do you know? It's a Taiwanese dollar, Matthew. Can you believe that?
Taiwanese, eh? Taiwanese.
They are there on the Taiwan. They are there on the Formosa Island, the Republic of China. That's actually really cool. A big shout out and a thanks to you, Global Warmer. And also, really big thanks to you for watching. I think that's really neat that we actually have a viewer from Taiwan here tonight. Really cool. And also, $10 is quite a lot in America. That'll buy you a full meal over here as well. And I got to thank you greatly for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And I am very happy to know that it's your fifth time here and you're loving it. Because we always like to make it to where, as long as you support American and Western interests, which Taiwan is certainly a part of, that you'll be welcome here. And welcome to the Lee Spring Army. And a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also see Byron Iverson. He said if the personalities meld, it doesn't matter. It's all about the entertainment. I don't know. Like, I don't know about that. I think there's some level of luck involved in it. Like, you can have personalities that meld pretty well, and the show still doesn't really take off. Like, there's just like it just has to have that oomph behind it, and it's hard to describe what that is. But when you find it, though, like it's there and it works really well. But it's not something you can just manufacture. Like just to say, we need to go recruit like 3 new people to take over the Grand Tour. It's like it's forced. It's not something that organically occurred. It's something that's being forced into place. So I think there might be an element of that possibly going on too. It's not so great, but we'll find out though. It might be good. It might be unfairly judging the folks ahead of time. But jumping into our next one here, this one goes to Ripster435 once again. He puts in a 10, and thank you, good sir, once more for this 7th super chat of the night. All extremely generous support, and we do appreciate that, Ripster. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you greatly for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. You didn't throw in a comment, but your support has been incredible tonight, and we thank you greatly for it because it truly is helping us to stay on air. And so an incredible, humongous thanks to you so much once again. And also, man, let me pull this up here. Grand Tour, new hosts. Because I just heard something here. Oh, no way! Hold up. Wait a minute, they're taking the train, dude? Oh, that's actually, you know
Is
what? I
that the
didn't know that.
kid?
Yeah, the train dude right there.
And what? And what do you mean, like train dude?
He's like me, Matthew. He's a foamer.
Yikes!
Bro, don't get on his case, bro. He's like probably one of the most famous like train spotters out there in the world.
Hey, what's he know about cars though? It's like you know about trains, but you don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about cars though.
But he could be there to give contrast, Matthew. He could be there to give contrast that's needed. He could be.
Interesting.
This guy is pretty
He looks like
chill.
a train guy. Honestly, he's kind of got my build a little bit. This dude's got the kind of the skinny arms and stuff going on. He's kind of got my build. But I'm not a train person.
This guy, by the way, man, like I don't know his name, but I've seen so many clips of him. But he goes around Britain, man. He'd be like, "Today I'm going on a train, and it's like this and this type. It's a clan class or something like that." And he'd get on it. He'd be like,
A
"The
what?
coffee." Like you have not heard of the clan class of the British Railway?
No, I haven't heard that one.
Clan class. Bro, don't put me on a spot like man like this. Like, what do you mean clan class? Well, it ain't the ones in the South. It's that right there. That's the clan class. Pretty common
Interesting.
engine in the British railways, and it's in the 50s, but and the 60s as well, because Britain didn't dieselify as much as and quickly as we did in America. But beyond that though, he is a pretty cool dude, pretty chill too, and so I think that you know what? Actually, I think I'll have to watch that show. They're trying to bring in the folks like me now, and you know what? Now that I've heard that there's some representation from my kind in there, I think I might give it a watch. You know, it's good to see that they're pandering to the foamers like me and everyone else here. So, with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have 5 here from Taoist Auditor. He said, but the third guy's a train guy. It could be a back and forth with Enforcer.
And you know what? I saw that super chat actually, Taos, and that's what made me pull it up. And he is. So I think that would be interesting. Also, Butcher777 said he came over to see the big boy. He did. He actually caught that cool little moment in Pennsylvania where the Reading and Northern 2102 was next to 4014 and it was pacing it. Pretty cool. And I was like, man, he was lucky. I've never seen 2102. I've only seen Big Boy. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
This one goes to Ian Hansen, who said, from what the other dudes are reporting out there, people are already being rounded up for mobilization in Russia. Have you heard about it?
We've heard about it a little bit in places like Penza, but it's more so spot based. It's not nationwide. So I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to George Tencher. He said, what steps, if any, have we seen NATO take to address the growing concerns that Russia may make a move against NATO territory? And are we beefing up defenses in the Baltics at all?
Generally, we have not seen NATO do much of anything overtly or publicly, rather than trying to avoid any sort of confrontation with the Russians. And so are we beefing up defenses in the Baltics? As far as static defenses, yes. But as far as manpower and troops that are there, absolutely not for the most part. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is the last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And viewer is Terry Davis, who said, do you think the conscription ties into the intel of Russia attacking a NATO state soon and making the conscription to defend Russia against NATO rather than the front line in Ukraine?
I think that it could be for both. I'm not really sure which it would be, but it could certainly be for both. Because once they get the manpower, they can really move forward with either plan. Brute forcing the war in Ukraine and just trying to win it at that, or trying to start a war with NATO. So it'd really be hard to say which until we see where those units start to get moved. If they're moved towards Baltic's borders or NATO borders, we definitely know that they're for a NATO invasion. If we see that they don't really show up at NATO's borders, then all of them are intended for Ukraine. So I hope that does address that question well. And a big shout out to Cerberus 3 who threw in a 10 and said, Matthew's so offended. How dare this train looking broke person talking about my cars? And one from the chat, please. I wish we could get one
Man,
from the chat.
it isn't about him being broke. I don't even know if the guy's broke. He might be well off. That's not the point though. You can be whatever on that end of the thing of the spectrum. But it's like, you know, how it, like a train spotter. Like, no offense to train spotters, like in all seriousness, but it's like, what do they know about cars? It's like, you know, most times train spotter type folks, they were really never like car people. Like, a car person is a lot different than a train person, like a lot. Like car people usually like speed, they like, loud engines like that are kind of a little bit obnoxious to a certain degree. And they like the whole thing about the car, like, meetups and stuff like that. That's what they like. Trained people aren't like that. They're very solitary, they're very elusive creatures that hang around, rail yards and stuff like that. I'm not sure if that's the same thing.
What do you got against trained people? Or are you trained-ist?
The last time I ran across a trained person, it was an interesting time.
So, how did you like getting that lobster then at Freshies with me then? How'd you like that?
Well, you're not a full-time trained person.
I am a full-time trained person, man. Like, what are you talking about here? I am a full-time trained person, man. When I'm not on the show, that's like my whole hobby, man. That's my whole shtick. That's my whole gig these days.
I guess. I don't know what they know about cars, though. Do you think a trained person was slinging around their car, like a drifting, like with McDonald's trays and stuff like that when they didn't have a rear-wheel drive? Do you think they were doing stuff like that when they were younger? Probably not.
Nah, man, because we follow the order. We maintain the
Of
order.
course. I wonder why.
You wonder why? What the hell's that supposed to mean?
I'm just asking. I wonder why. I'm just trying to get in the mind of a trained person.
You sat there and said, "I wonder why." Like you knew the answer. What do you mean by that? What do you mean? Like we're like
It's you people.
because we have a certain way of doing things. We're stupid or something. What do you mean by that?
I mean, you said it, not me.
Well, I mean, it sounded like you're trying to insinuate that. I mean, just
I don't
because
even know what that means.
just because the car people, Matthew, like to go around and act like they're better than thou, doesn't mean that going around and doing burnouts at a red light at 12 o'clock in the morning is the coolest thing on the planet. I'm just saying, I generally like my sleep, and I don't like hearing loud-ass cars all around my place. I'm just saying, like, I'm just being honest here, folks. I mean, I don't mean to get at odds or anything here. I'm just saying the car stick with like the car people, it does kind of get a little tiring, like you don't see train people going around going, oh man, I love my train. Like, like, oh man, everyone who doesn't like trains is dumb. And I hate them. Like, you don't see that a lot. You know what I mean? But beyond that, though, outside of that whole deal, it is time for us, folks, to round out this stream for the night. I got to thank you all greatly for having been here tonight. We are always absolutely honored and greatly appreciative of getting to cover this news for each and every single one of you. And tonight we saw that we had a peak viewership of 16.3 thousand people. That's probably like 17,000 people when the update comes out tomorrow sometime. And we also had 100,000 people watch this show before it ended. And I've got to say that we're always honored and greatly appreciative of each and every single one of y'all enjoying the show and spending multiple hours a day, 3.5 hours today, watching the show to be able to get the news and to also hang out with us. And we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world and to also run our Sunday night fundraiser. And if there is a short war video to be made, I'll be the one making that short war video. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Ram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we appreciate all over 100,000 people for joining us once again tonight on the War News stream. And we hope to see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the Sunday night fundraiser stream. And we hope to see you then as well. And thank you all once again for choosing us as your news source once again tonight. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, get some rest, and good night.